Good morning. Happy Thursday. We are back for what is it? Day 4 of the Alec Murdaugh murder case. I had some technical difficulties, but we're up and rolling now. Today, we are going to get to the first prosecution witnesses. They moved through opening statements yesterday with a swiftness. The prosecution arguing that there is, or stating its opening statements, stating that there is cell phone evidence that shows that Murdaugh was at the property at Moselle when he said he wasn't, that he was there just minutes before Paul and Maggie were murdered, and that he was up by the dog kennels, which begs the question, if he's up by the dog kennels just minutes before this happened, why didn't he hear the gunshots? They didn't say that, but it's what I was thinking last night. Okay, well, then he wouldn't have called the police 2 hours later, or an hour and 45 minutes later, because he would have heard it. So all of these factors coming in with a cell phone train of evidence. They also talked a lot about gunshot residue. They didn't talk a ton about motive, but they did talk about the fatal boat crash where Paul was the driver. Interestingly enough, in the defense opening statements, they talked about Paul being irresponsible with the weapons. I think they're setting up that's the story they're going to tell about how a weapon is missing. It's not that someone ditched a murder weapon. It's just that these things happen. They also talked about in the defense opening statement the brutality of these crimes and that Alec Murdaugh was a loving father. It's quite a lot to take in. We're getting to our first witnesses. Don't forget to do the YouTube things. Replay crew, there will be timestamps down below. I know a lot of you will be watching replay because we're doing trial all day. I've got hot water and lemon here in Middle Tennessee. There was a danger floof in my yard this morning. I sent the wrong links to the text crew. Today's already been a day. We're going to roll the intro. We're going to talk to everybody. Court has not resumed yet. I appreciate that this court is like, we'll give it a little sweet tea time. We're going to, we start court at this time, but we got a little skosh of room. The way that I appreciate it, because having to be in court at 8:30 in the morning was one of the things that was the bane of my existence as a trial attorney. It was, look, man, it's early. Let's go.
Hey there, I'm Emily D. Baker, the internet's go-to legal analyst, breaking down the legal side of the pop culture and entertainment stories we can't stop talking about. I'm a big fan of the cursey words. I've been a licensed attorney for over 17 years, but this is not legal advice. This is where the law nerds unite to talk about facts, not. Let's get into it.
Good to see where you all are coming in from. Tell us more about Danger Floof. It looked like just a little bobcat. So we're in Middle Tennessee. That's not so uncommon, but he was just cruising, and I was like, oh, Danger Floof. So as my kiddo was getting ready to school, we were all standing at the window like, where are you going, buddy? What are you doing? Before court starts, let's see. Do we have our screen shared yet? No. Will we be ready to do that? Yes. I've been kicked out of my own streaming software like twice this morning, so we're hoping for the best. We're hoping we won't get kicked out again. Ivy said the correct thing. Maybe friend shaped, but not friend. if friend shaped, why not friend? So Mittens the murder kitty was cruising around my yard this morning, and I loved it. Look, we have indoor pets. We do not have outdoor pets. So I'm just able to look at it and just be like, oh, outdoor pets. So for all of you that aren't morning persons, it's good to see you. West Coast represent. West Coast is representing. The international crew is like, top of the afternoon to you all. This time works very well for us. So I have a question. When they say they were shot, wouldn't the dogs make a racket? Why didn't he hear that? Also, that is a great question. That is a great question. So it is a great question. Wouldn't the dogs go nuts? Here's my thought on the dogs, because I have been thinking about this case. It is now in my brain. I've been thinking about this case overnight before we resumed testimony today. The dogs are on a hunting property where they really do shoot quite a lot. It sounded like Paul and his friends would be at the front door of the house, sighting in and shooting into the yard. So the gunshots alone might not have freaked out the dogs in this case. So we've got, the jury's not in the room yet to see him turning around smiling at his son, but I don't know how he's sitting in there watching witnesses when he's on the witness list. If I'm the prosecution, I got
An
questions.
email was sent to my
Oh, dear.
chambers at 5:52 p.m. yesterday by
Chris
someone
Wilson.
by the name of
No.
I don't know whether it's
He's a
Chris
witness.
Wilson who's on the witness list or not, complaining about the violation of my court order prohibiting the disclosure of the identity of jurors. Did not respond to the email, and I'll make the email part of the record in the case. And if counsel can look at it.
What is happening? Who violated the court order? Don't cut the microphones. Why is a witness emailing the judge that somebody disclosed the identities of the jurors the day that witnesses are starting? What in the fuckery afoot is happening? Chris Wilson, by the way, in this case, is an individual who had cases with Alec Murdaugh, who the payment to Chris Wilson is one of the things that the law firm was sus about, and so it's integrally interwoven into this. So I am so confused. I'm making a note. Email to Chambers. They'll be able to tell immediately if it is the Chris Wilson on the witness list from the email address. We are starting off early with drama. Wow. Counsel, I got an email to Chambers at 5:25 last night that someone has violated my court order with disclosure of identity of jurors. This is the kind of, why are you smiling? This is the kind of thing that is a concern in a small community. This is absolutely an issue. He did look surprised. This is wild. They might have to have, the attorneys might want to put some things on the record, which is something that they may choose to do now. I just want to see what happened. His face, the judge's face says it's too early for this shit.
Of course, exhibit number 2.
That's what his face says to me.
Any comment by the state or the defense?
No, Your Honor, none from Ms. Murdaugh.
None from the state, Your Honor.
The jurors aren't in the courtroom yet, so the camera feeds are not showing the jurors. All of these individuals are people watching in court, much less full than I thought it would be.
Anything before the jury comes?
Nothing from the state, Your Honor.
Your Honor,
Oh, something from Dick.
the video he's about to show has, I believe, and I believe he agrees, images which are under the order signed by you. And so as they're being proposed to be shown, if I have something or he has something, we're going to, obviously under that order, we have to disclose that to you. And if you approve the showing, we've got some logistical issues. If you give me just a minute.
No. He told you to deal with this last night.
That one is not working, but this monitor is viewable from the audience, and we'd like to cover it up with some MacGyver-like device.
A MacGyver-like
That's been developed
device.
by Mr. Waters, where you tape paper, we can flip back and forth. So, if somebody has some tape, I'd like to do that before he begins, so that nothing's shown back there. And in both ways. You got paper too?
Yes, I can turn the court feed up. But this is a witness in the case, on the witness list. Nobody seems to care that he's in court, though, so whatever. I love that the judge looks like an old man and a baby at the same time. He's great, and I love him. The court audio is wild. Did they just brush over the email? Yep. They aren't going to address it. Nope, not going to address it further. Wait, we just continue? There's no need for a new jury? Yep. Yep. We just continue. We just continue, which is wild. What's with the no tie? I think he's trying to appear relatable. Taping paper is MacGyver now. Apparently for Dick it is. So they don't want the audience to be able to see the video that is going to be shown to the jury. This might mean that that video also doesn't show to us and we only hear audio of the body cam footage, which is the first thing. Yesterday, the defense said the body cam footage needed to be played in its entirety, and playing it in its entirety was that everything on the body cam will be shown. Some of the things are covered by the court's protective order. The court's protective order, and I'm going to turn this down just a little while nobody's talking.
You may bring the jury.
The court's protective order, while the jury's walking in, the court's protective order is not to show any of the graphic footage or photos of the victims in this case. So the defense thinks that there is some part of the body cam footage that might violate the court order. The court order did not say that they couldn't violate, that they couldn't show any images of the victims, just not graphic images. Brian asked, why are we doing the long crime feed instead of the Court TV feed? Because Court TV takes commercial breaks and they didn't have closed captioning yesterday. So the long crime feed has closed captioning and does not take breaks in the middle of witnesses. So that's why. If Court TV did two feeds, like one that was their TV feed and one that was just a raw feed out of the court, I would use their feed. So what is the deal with court-ordered violations depends on the jurisdiction. So the way they deal with court order violations depends on the jurisdiction. No, they haven't determined it's a violation. They just had someone say that they thought it was a violation. They didn't deal with it being a violation. So, Leanne G said it's technically all Court TV. Court TV owns the cameras and feeds out the pool feed. Where I'm pulling the feed from is who is showing the base feed and where I'm pulling the feed from. So won't Court TV copyright strike you? No, I don't. Court TV won't, and I am confident the Law and Crime will not either, because they can't, and there's a specific court order that this is pool feed. Didn't they also say the audio was messed up on the body cam footage? I don't remember what they said about it. Back to the court order. The court has a protective order on those exhibits. The jury will see them. We will not see things like autopsy photos, which is completely fine with me. We will not see graphic crime scene photos and video. I think the body cam footage, because it's body cam, is probably not that up close, but we will see what the court decides to do. Dick covered it up so that the audience couldn't see it from counsel's side. I didn't see if they covered up the monitor on the prosecution side. The prosecution can choose to or not to. So we will see what happens with the video. We'll see what happens with the video, but I'm very interested what they have to say
Good morning.
about this
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen.
supposed violation.
Day number,
4.
I guess, day number 4 of this session of court.
Oh, they turned one of the monitors around and they did cover this monitor. And then there's a monitor facing the jury right
I
here.
instructed you prior to us commencing yesterday with the opening statements, you're not to listen, watch, or read any news accounts of this case or discuss it with anyone or allow anyone to discuss it with you.
No one
Or
objected
in
to the
your
jury
presence.
thing.
Has that occurred?
And the
as
state
any
can't appeal if
jurors?
they... Here, I'll do this at a break.
All right, very good. It's very important that you keep that, follow that instruction. I know that many of
The
you are
state
not
can't appeal if
accustomed
they
to
lose ever.
sitting for long periods of time, and certainly not in settings like this. But if at any time you need a break, notify the bailiff, who will bring it to my attention, or raise your hand so that I could see, and we'll take a break at any time any juror would need a break or any court participant for that matter. And we're ready to proceed by the state.
Yes, we are, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, the state would call Sergeant Daniel Greene.
Witness number 1, Sergeant Greene. I'm surprised by that email this morning. I sent out a tweet. We gotta do things. I'm surprised by that. I'm surprised by that email.
Do solemnly swear or affirm that
But
the
the
testimony
court
you give to the court in this trial
Didn't take it up
will be
further.
the truth, so help
The
you God.
prosecution didn't object. The
Thank you. May I have a
defense didn't
seat?
make a motion.
Adjust
Nothing
the
else happened.
microphone
All of
so
them
that
read the email and were like,
you
whatevs.
Comfortably.
I want to know what's in that
You'll
email.
State your name and spell your last name for the record.
My full name is Daniel Greene. My last name Greene.
The media
I'm
will
good.
be able to look
All right, tell us where you work.
at
I work for the
that
Carlton
email.
County Sheriff's Office.
Okay,
Later.
and your rank is sergeant, obviously, is that correct?
That's correct.
Tell us just a little bit about yourself. Just give us just a little bit of your background that led you to your career in law enforcement, if you
Oh,
would.
he's talking fast.
I went to school here, grew up here, went to college at Charleston Southern University. I got a degree in social studies education, taught for a little while, and then got into law enforcement. Just kind of fell into it and liked it. And I've been here since 2014.
The teacher to law
Started with
enforcement
the Sheriff's Department in 2014.
track was not
That's
something I
All right, and what was your
expected.
first job that you did, or how does your career progress?
I started at the jail. I worked there for just over a year, and then I was moved to the road patrol.
All right, we're going to get into
I was
his
on road
background,
patrol
training, and
for several
experience.
years. Moved up the ranks to sergeant, where I was a road patrol supervisor, and now I'm a detective.
Okay, when did you become detective?
Earlier last year, it would have been June of last year.
Back in June of 2021, what was your job at that particular time with the Sheriff's Department?
In June of 2021, I was a road patrol sergeant supervisor.
All right, and explain how that works. What's your exact role as a sergeant and a road patrol supervisor?
So for the most part, I'm assigned a team consisting of 3 to 4 deputies, just depends. That include a corporal as well as several other deputies. My job primarily is to supervise them in their in a 12-hour shift. We answer calls for service. Sometimes I'll go with other deputies to calls that require more than one officer to be present. But the majority of my job is supervising what they do.
And during June of 2021, were you working day shift or night shift, or how did that work?
I was on night shift at that point.
And what are the hours of the night shift?
Late.
So we swap every 2 months. So 2 months you'll be on days, 2 months you'll be on nights. For those hours, it's 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. or 6 p.m. to 6 a.m.
And
would
let
be
me take
terrible
you
at
to
shift
the
work.
evening of June 7th, 2021. Were you working that particular evening?
I was.
And what shift were you working that
We were on night shift,
And again, so what hours would that be?
working from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m.
So you went on duty at 6 p.m., is that
I did,
correct?
yeah.
Okay. And you said you're the sergeant. What was the,
I
you
need
have a
him to
squad
slow
that you're
down.
supervising that are out during that shift? Explain that to the jury, if you would, please.
So
Mr.
that
Waters,
shift consisted of myself
calm
being the
yourself.
sergeant. I had a corporal and 2 deputies working as well. And at that point, I had a lieutenant who was my immediate supervisor. He was working as well.
All right, and again, you tell me who those people were?
Sure. So my corporal was Corporal Janicki, and the 2 deputies working with me were Deputy William
Sergeant
Pruitt
Greene
and
is
Deputy
not letting
Chad
Creighton
McDowell.
finish his question before
And
he
the lieutenant was
answers,
who?
Lieutenant Lonnie Nettles.
which is a lot. That's better.
Did you, on the evening of
Already is
June
way better.
7th, 2021, get a call for service at 4147 Moselle Road?
I did.
And you remember approximately what time that was?
It's later in the evening, several hours into my shift.
Okay. And did you ultimately respond to that location?
I did.
What was reported to you?
No, I want to
that
know
led
what
to
time the call
for
came
service
in.
From dispatch.
That there was a caller who stated he had found his wife and son shot.
And so tell me what happens then. You get that
Huh.
report, what do you do?
That was a quick
So I
switch
get
of
that call for
emotion.
service. Obviously, we immediately respond. In situations like that, we would respond with lights and sirens to get there as quickly as possible.
You're driving fast to get there?
Yes.
Lights are on?
Lights were on, siren was on. I think it still took me close to 20 minutes to actually get to the scene from where I was.
You have to ask dispatch to clarify the address?
I did, once I got out there, it's a very dark
20
area, very
minutes.
rural area on Moselle Road.
With lights and sirens,
There
code
were
3.
Not
is
a whole lot
long
of
way.
residences in the area. and I did need clarification once I got out there to confirm the address. Then I located the address on a mailbox across the street from a driveway.
So you saw the mailbox in the driveway you entered, is that correct?
That's correct.
The driveway that you entered that had this mailbox, where did it ultimately lead? What structures were there as you pulled up to the scene?
As I pulled down the long driveway, when I got to the end of it, there was a dog kennel area on the left as well as a
Too
shed area
fast.
on the right.
And that was
I will
the
talk
driveway
about
with
the email at a
mailbox,
break.
correct?
That was,
Is this location where the scene was, is it in Colleton County?
it is.
Tell me just a little bit before we get into more specifics. What was the, you said it was dark. What was the weather like?
This
What
is
was
quite-
the
it's the
conditions
talking-
of the scene, or the weather in the scene
The
like?
talking over
It's
gets
quite
hard.
normal for June around here. It's rather hot and humid. It had been raining a little bit off and on that evening. It was not raining at the time that I actually responded to the scene.
That's good to know.
Were you the first law enforcement officer or first responder on the scene?
I was.
Were there others, other first responders following close behind?
The additional first responder that was directly behind me worked for Colleton County Fire Rescue. He pulled in almost the same time I did.
When you would arrive at the scene, before we talk about, what you actually experienced at this scene, what is your main job at a scene like this? What are you there to do as a first responder, the first officer on the
I
scene?
bet the answer is not
So a
figure out
major
what the
crime
fuck
scene
is
like that,
happening.
my job is to get there, secure the scene. And what I mean by secure the scene is ensure that there are no individuals
Gunmen on
there
the
that
loose?
would potentially cause harm to additional first responders coming there or any witnesses or victims that are already on scene. Preserve any evidence that might be there, and then wait for investigators to arrive as I gather information from anybody else that is already on scene.
Okay, so you're going to gather basic information, but your job's not to investigate it in great detail. is
That's
that
correct.
Okay. As you arrived at this scene, again, what had been reported to you by dispatch?
That a male caller had called and said he found his wife and son shot.
And from that report to you, about how long did it take you to ultimately make it onto the scene?
He said
It was
20
roughly about
minutes.
20 minutes.
When you arrived on scene, when you said one of the things that you do is secure the scene, were you at all concerned about any perpetrator still being there at that point in time?
When I arrived, not necessarily, just because he had already been there for quite a while. Whenever he called, it seemed the way the call came in that he discovered them like that and that there was nobody else there other than him and the wife and son.
So you're the first officer on scene, but you're not thinking the perpetrators are still there?
It's something you have to keep in the back of your mind, but not necessarily at the forefront.
Okay. All right. You didn't come in hot with guns drawn or anything like that?
No.
Mindful, not concerned. Fair. He doesn't type
When
his
you
questions.
arrived at the scene and you
He
walked
handwrites them.
and got out of your car, what did you see?
Interesting.
So as soon as I got out of my vehicle, I was walking down the rest of the driveway, which went between the dog kennel and the shed. As I could see Mr. Murdaugh down at the end of the driveway.
I agree.
As I approached toward him, I could see the male victim laying on the ground to my left, as well as the female victim on the
The
ground
jury
to my
doesn't
right.
know what time the 911 call came in
The
just
male
yet.
victim was close to a small shed in the dog kennel on the left.
We know it was after 10
There was a
p.m.
large deal of blood that had pooled around his body. Same thing for the female victim on the right. Also a large amount of blood around her body.
As you approached and at first saw
That's
the male
what
victim and the
I've been
female victim,
suspecting.
what was your assessment? Was there any possible signs of life from your?
My initial
His lawyers
assessment
don't
was that
seem
there was
concerned
not.
at all.
There appeared
His
to be a large
lawyers are
amount
not
of blood
looking.
around each
Alec
of them.
Murdaugh's
as
lawyers
well
don't
as,
look like he's upset at
brain
all.
matter.
They're not responding to him.
Did you ultimately have
None.
a conversation
Which
with
is
Mr. Murdaugh
interesting.
when you were out there?
I did.
And do you see him here in the courtroom today, the person that you talked to?
I do.
And can you point him out to the jury, please?
Yes, sir. He's right there wearing a dark blue or black jacket.
Your Honor, can the record reflect that he's identified Mr. Murdaugh?
It does.
When you ultimately approached Mr. Murdaugh, what's the first thing that
He's
you did?
wiggling. He doesn't look like
The
he's
first thing I
crying
did was
to me.
ensure that he did not have any weapons on him. That's standard procedure for arriving on a scene like that. Any kind of weapons that are anywhere on the scene, I want to be aware of just so I can know whether they're there or not, and if they are there, who has access to them at any point. And that's for my safety as well as other responding officers and for anyone else that's on scene.
Did Mr. Murdaugh give you any possible explanation for this when you approached him?
His immediate reaction was to start telling me about an incident that had happened with his son with a boating accident.
With the boating accident?
Yes, sir.
Had you asked him anything about that?
I did not.
You ultimately, were you wearing a body worn camera that particular?
I was.
You ultimately had a conversation with Mr. Murdaugh for a fairly extended period of time. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Did you ever see any tears in your interactions with Mr. Murdaugh?
He did not appear to be crying. He was upset, but I did not see any visible tears.
Did Mr. Murdaugh tell you that he had any sort of firearm?
He did. He stated that he had left from that scene, went to the residence, grabbed a shotgun from that residence, and then brought it back because he felt like he needed to have it just in case something else were to happen.
He told you he had gone back to the residence after finding the victims to get that gun.
He did.
What, if anything, did you do once he told you that he?
So found the victims,
First, he
back to
pointed
the
to where-
residence,
or
got a gun,
pointed
went
out
back.
where the gun was. It was leaning against the vehicle that he was driving at the time.
That's a
I could
safety
see that it was a
precaution.
camouflage shotgun.
Precaution.
I spoke with him for a few more minutes, and just based off of how nervous he was acting and anxious and upset, I decided it was in everyone's best interest to get that shotgun and secure it in my vehicle so that no one else had access to it.
Nervous, anxious, upset doesn't
so
cut
you
either way on that.
Put that
I
shotgun in
don't
your
think.
vehicle, is that
I
correct?
did.
What did you ultimately do with that shotgun? Did you later turn it over to additional law enforcement?
Yes, after it was secured in my vehicle, once SLED arrived on scene to do their further investigation, it was then turned over to SLED.
Bear with me 1 second.
So Alec told this officer that he found the bodies, went to go retrieve a shotgun in case the gunman was in the area, and then came back
Admitted
up
that objection.
to where the
May I ask that we have
where his
the
wife and son
camera
were?
working, please?
I would like to know when in there the 911 call got made. So it's absolutely fair of the officer to secure a weapon, because again, you don't know what people will do in grief. I had law enforcement officers attacked at a car crash scene by the husband of the woman who was in the crash, because first responders were working on her and he was tearing through them to try to get to her
See it first, I believe it's
in
submitted without objection.
fear
It's
and
not a
grief
graphic
and
image.
overwhelm. And
May I
so
publish it to the jury?
securing a weapon is necessary and appropriate. They're going to publish a
All right,
image
I'm going to put what's been marked as
to the jury. They're not going to publish it to the jury yet. They need to show it to the witness. They need to have it marked as evidence,
put
and they
what's
need
been
to.
marked as State's Exhibit 3.
So it's marked, and then it needs to be
screen.
admitted. The witness
if I
needs
can
to
get the right
identify
way.
it first. Aaron said, "Wait, this was evening, not morning." Yes, this was
You can't see it.
around
Can you
10
see
o'clock
that?
at night, but
Oh,
the jury doesn't know
you
that
can?
yet.
All right, and do you recognize the what's in that particular image?
I do.
All right, and tell me what that is, please.
That's the shotgun that I secured in my vehicle on the scene.
Okay. See,
Photo of a shotgun. So he's marked it, identified it, then he can admit it. There's a process with evidence. You can't publish it to the jury. It needs to be marked, shown to the witness. Oh, is that the actual shotgun? I don't know what's going on. Sorry about that. That's the actual shotgun. So he marked the photo as exhibit. So in the process of evidence coming in, evidence needs to be marked, identified, admitted, and then it can be published to the jury. So I don't know what is going on because my internet is fine. So we're going to work on that. So that's the actual shotgun. The attorneys are talking about it. I don't know if the jury needs to see it, but it's going to come up quite a lot because we're going to be talking about gunshot residue. This is not a murder weapon. It's not believed to be a murder weapon. Peachy asked, will we get to see the email from earlier? The media will get to review it. That's in court after court today. And hopefully they will publish it or at least share the contents of it. So we should see that. So they are still going over that. I'm going to answer a few questions. Questions about earlier. Kate R., can the state appeal on the jury thing if they lose? The state can never appeal if they lose.
Sergeant Greene, I'm going to show you what's
That
been
puts
marked
somebody in jeopardy.
before.
So double jeopardy would be violated. The
Application
state,
this time.
if someone is acquitted, the state has no recourse.
And
They're acquitted.
see if you recognize this particular item.
How can his son
sir,
be
that
there
would
if
be
he's on the
shotgun
witness list?
investigator.
I don't know.
Your Honor, this time we would move Exhibit 4 into evidence.
So they're admitting the weapon into evidence.
No, sir.
Admit it.
May I have Sergeant Greene show this firearm to the jury?
Yes.
I'll be sure not to.
Okay.
offend anybody, please. You know what
All right.
page that firearm is?
You can hear the court photographer clicking.
Thank
Having guns in court is always like everybody's like, oh, show and tell. Physical evidence is always a thing. Knives, guns. Everybody always wants to see them. I had a judge once make me bring a dog into court. So, disaster.
All right, Sergeant Greene.
Ooh,
I'm gonna
That's
show you
echoing
another
inside
document
court.
Before we move on to some other matters.
thank you, Paula. Wonder if the email is like the DB Reddit fake juror, but this one came from what's presumed to be a witness in this case. It could be a
Your
red
Honor,
herring.
I believe I'd move to admit that State's Exhibit 2 without objection.
And no objection, Your Honor.
All right, I'm going to show this exhibit to you real quick and see if you recognize this document.
Emily, why not send an email asking the judge? The judge wouldn't answer. The judge is getting
Yes, sir, that
inundated
would
with
be the chain
emails
of
and it
custody
wouldn't
for
be
shotgun.
appropriate.
All right, is there a signature on that document?
It is.
All right,
The
and
attorneys
what does
haven't
this chain
objected.
document reflect? Can
They
you
know
just
he's
generally
there.
explain What this means to the jury, please?
So
That I originally took possession of that weapon and then turned it over to SLED investigators.
now they're establishing
May I
chain of
publish this
custody.
exhibit, Your Honor?
Yes.
So when this gun is tested, this is the chain of custody. So
So up here
Would a
it
witness
says
contact a
there
judge
was
directly?
Mallory
Seems like it
Black
happened.
Eagle. Did you unload this particular shotgun?
I did not.
Okay. But you ultimately turned the shotgun in and slid the state over to the agent listed here, is that
I
correct?
did. I did.
what's in the
You
shotgun is going to be
altered
very
the weapon in
interesting.
any way between the time you took it and the time you took it over to SLED?
No, I didn't manipulate it in any way.
What's loaded in the shotgun came up in the defense opening argument, and the types of ammunition on the property and the types of ammunition that were found, the casings that were found spent near the victims in this case will come in. So it's interesting to know if the ammo in this shotgun was of the same kind and if it was
I'm going to show you what's been marked. for
what the
identification
defense
at this
said.
time, is State's Exhibit number 1.
12
See if
gauge,
you recognize this.
16 gauge.
Yes, sir, I do.
What is it?
And can you tell the jury what this is on this desk right here?
That would be the body camera footage from that incident.
Chain of custody?
From your arrival at Moselle Road and through the investigation until at some point you turned it off after it no longer needed to be on, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, Your Honor, at this time I'll move to admit State's Exhibit number 1.
That clarification, that is this officer's body cam, which is a camera that's mounted on his body, is that correct?
You're
That's
not
correct.
testifying,
It's-
Dick.
Say admit it.
It was clear
Your Honor,
enough.
permission to publish this exhibit to the jury. I'll need the,
The sides would have to agree to allow him to stay.
now that there are graphic images on this, so everybody needs to cover up their monitors, please.
Parties to control what is presented and published in accordance with the court's order. The parties to police that yourselves.
Your Honor, we intend on taking the screen off when he gets to the graphic images and then uncovering it.
They come pretty quickly, as you.
I remember. So, Mr. Griffin's ready.
All right. I don't think we will be shown this footage, but if we do, there is always the possibility of graphic images. Question: what does SLED stand for? South Carolina Law Enforcement Division. Also, why are the lawyers not asking to approach the witness? It seems that in this courtroom, that is not required. Did the lawyer just block the screen? Yes, the screens are blocked with taped paper so that the audience can't see it. Here's the thing. This is just them rolling in lights and sirens. The court has allowed evidence to be reviewed by the media at the end of the day. So they can go watch this anyway, unless there are parts of it that are redacted. But it's my understanding that none of this is redacted. And this video will be showing
Sergeant Greene, this is your body cam video, is that correct?
That's correct.
to the jury.
First 15 minutes or so of this video, are you running code, running at full speed or at least reasonable speed to get to this scene as fast as you can, is that correct?
Yes, sir. My lights and siren were activated so I can get there quickly.
And that's what he means by running code. He's running code 3.
Your Honor, at this time, I'm going to fast forward it until he arrives, I believe without objection from the defense.
Without objection, Your Honor.
Without objection from the defense. Defense, you don't also have to clarify without objection. It seems that Mr. Harpootlian is not going to pass up an opportunity to talk. So they should be fast forwarding the first 15 minutes of him running code because the jury doesn't want to hear the inside of a police car for 15 fucking minutes. I'm okay if we don't see it. I don't know what the court reporter has on her mouth. I don't know. She could be, it could be a recording device where she's talking into it. It could be breathing assistance. I don't know. Is he chewing gum in court during a jury trial? Interesting.
Past the driveway that I was supposed to have turned down. Like I said, everything's kind of dark out there. It wasn't clearly indicated, so.
Central, that was 4147 or 57?
Yeah, there's a monitor here that the gallery is trying to see.
Keep your vehicle in the driveway with the flashes on. That's going to be the caller.
It was covered, now it's uncovered, because the defense needs to see it.
Copy, I'm going on scene. It's got a long driveway, but the mailbox out front is labeled. He's not at the end of the driveway. He might be up by the house.
The correct number for 4147 Moselle?
It is.
And is that the incident location where you discovered the victims?
That's correct.
Copy.
I'm getting out. Let's call her now.
Yeah, it looked like she was talking into it to record.
Right there to the left of the screen. What did you see right there?
It's odd to me
To the
in a
left
murder
was
case.
Paul's body. He was
The chewing
laying face
gum.
down on the ground. Large pool of blood around him, as well as a great deal of water that was immediately around his body.
Was it that water? Was it just around? Was it down the entire kennel concrete pad, or was it mostly just?
No, you could see walking down the kennel as I got out. The closer I got to Paul's body, the more water there was.
Had it been raining enough at this point in time to wet the entire to cause that amount of water?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation.
No, it doesn't. It's
That's
his
your rule.
opinion.
Answer the question, please.
I don't recall if it had been raining a whole
You
lot
may
that
answer the
evening.
question.
But given where the water was, it did not appear that rain had caused that water.
Ladies and gentlemen, there is an objection. If I sustain the objection,
Oh, he's explaining.
you are to then disregard the question and any responses. If I overrule the objection, then you may consider the responses and the question is deemed appropriate. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. I backed it up just a little bit, apparently too far, so I'm just going to roll from here again.
Central 717 scene is secure. Got a Whiskey Fox, Whiskey Mike.
What are we seeing to the right of this?
He's not actually talking about
So on
whiskey.
the right would be Maggie's body, also laying face down on the ground. A large pool of blood around her head.
And we see an individual standing. Who is that?
The individual standing in the background would be Mr. Murdaugh.
The person you previously identified in this courtroom?
That's correct.
Both gunshot wounds to the head.
And just to be clear, this location that you're standing right now is in Colleton County, is that correct?
It is, yes.
He's establishing the county for the crime. Just required.
I did go get a gun and bring it
Okay,
down here.
it's in your vehicle? Do you have any guns on you at all?
No, sir, it's leaning up against the side of my car.
You're fine, man, you're fine. Turn around for me.
I don't have any.
Okay, yes, sir, I see that. Okay. This is your wife and son? Okay.
I noticed you shined your flashlight just a few seconds ago on the.
It sounds like he was
black
about to say it's
vehicle.
bad.
What did you shine your flashlight on just then?
You could see the
He's
shotgun
probably
leaning
looking
up
for the
against
shotgun.
the side of that vehicle.
I would think.
Were the flashers on the vehicle right there in the image?
I believe so,
recall?
yes.
It's bad. Check the pulses.
Yes, sir. This is the firearm you brought from inside the house?
Sir, yes, sir. I went and got, this is a long story. My son was in a boat wreck.
Oh,
months back.
immediately into the boat wreck.
He's been getting threats. Most of it's been benign stuff we didn't take serious.
Okay.
You know, he's been getting like punched. I know that's somebody. I know that's what it is.
When did,
I know that's what
When
it
you
is.
previously testified that he mentioned the boat case or the boat wreck?
That's correct. Prior to me asking him anything about it, he did mention it.
I know that's what it is.
right when you called, or did you go to the house first? Where is the house?
I came to the house first. My mom has late stages Alzheimer's, and my dad is in the hospital.
Okay.
I left. I don't know what time. I can go back on my phone and tell you the
They're
exact
both
times. Did you
watching on
check-
this monitor.
Did I check what?
Did you check them?
We got medical guys that are, that's what they're gonna do, okay?
What are they doing? Can they hurry?
They are, yes, sir. That gentleman that was out here already, he's one of the battalion chiefs, okay?
This is this officer talking to Alec
Before that
Murdaugh.
discussion, did Mr. Murdaugh
At
offer to
the
go on his
scene.
phone and check?
He did.
Time.
He did. He wanted to verify exactly the timing of his arrival.
How did you pull up? You from back there?
I went to the house and they weren't home, which was odd. I tried to call.
Okay.
And then I knew they had been down here before I left to go to my mom's.
Okay.
And so that is loaded.
Okay.
You might want to unload it. But,
Thanks for telling the officer how to do his job. You might want to unload it.
Is this the only firearm with you? This is the only one, or is there any more in the truck?
I believe that's it.
You think that's the only one?
I'm 99%.
Do you normally
certain that's-
have
They're
any
both
other
watching the
firearms in
same
your vehicle?
monitor.
I don't, but occasionally there's a pistol in there.
Okay.
So you're putting stuff on your hands. What are you doing right there?
Those are just gloves, so I could put on my hand to limit the contamination of any evidence.
You put those
Fair.
on before you handled the firearm, is that
Yes.
correct?
Just wait right here for me for a second, okay?
We don't hear a lot of dogs barking. They are up by the kennels. I just heard the one. They are up by the kennels where the bodies are.
What are you doing right now?
At this point, I'm walking back to my vehicle to secure that shotgun inside my vehicle.
We can actually see you holding it to the left of the screen, is that correct?
That's correct. That's me holding the barrel of that shotgun.
Explain to us real quick a body-worn camera. Where is that located and where are these images coming from?
I would have put it, I generally put it right here on my chest, dead center in my chest.
And how is it activated? How is it turned off? Can you explain that to the jury a little bit as well?
So most
a
of
good
these
time to
cameras
take
are
a pause,
activated in the patrol
especially if
vehicles.
it's bloody, to take a
that
pause and give the
deputies on
jury a
patrol
minute
have. They're activated
before
whenever
getting
you
back in.
activate your blue lights. So as soon as I turn my blue lights on,
That
it
or he
activates
forgot.
my dash camera as well as my body-worn camera.
And then how do you ultimately turn it off?
It's got a button on the front of it that you can press. If it did not originally activate it, you would press that button to turn it on, to start the recording, and then whenever you're done recording, you press that same button to stop the recording.
In this particular instance, how did it get activated? Was it when you turned on your blue lights to run code to the scene?
That's correct. It was activated with my blue lights.
And I've used the term run code. Do you know what that means?
Yes.
And can you
Yes.
explain that to the jury, please?
Sure. Running code is just whenever you turn your lights on as well as your siren to get wherever you need to get fast.
When you're moving quickly to respond to an emergency situation.
That's correct.
You could have explained that earlier, but I appreciate the break and breaking up a difficult video for the jury. I think that's either he's forgetting or he's being conscientious.
Go ahead, sir. Yeah, well, I've already spoken with Captain Field.
So we're going to hear a lot of procedure. I don't expect the police to be anything other than
Right there, you laid the shotgun inside your vehicle, is that correct?
That's correct. I laid it in front of the
Linear.
passenger seat in the front.
Did it remain there until it was turned over to SLED?
It did.
So again, you can hear the dogs, but they're not freaking out.
To the left of the screen, again, that's where the Paul was, is that correct?
That's correct. That's Paul.
The gun at the scene
Is
was the gun
where
that
you saw the water? that you described earlier?
Murdaugh went to
is.
go get.
Well, I've already spoken with Captain Field. He's got crime scene in contact with them. He's also going to give us the assistance of a couple of field agents. Roger that. No, take the gun out.
You can hear Murdaugh talking.
Just turn all those.
Yes, sir. That's what it looks like.
You can hear Murdaugh saying they are dead, aren't they?
What is Mr. Murdaugh doing at this particular time?
He's on the phone, pacing around, talking to someone. I'm not sure who he was talking to at that point.
Did he ask you to confirm if they were dead?
He did. He asked multiple times while I was on scene.
Did you ever see him, any tears, any physical tears?
I did not.
I don't know.
Did you ever see him approach the bodies?
I did not see him approach them, no.
Did you observe any visible blood on him?
There was no blood on him that I could see.
Which is odd to
The
me.
bodies, as you saw them, was there a lot of blood around them, given the injuries they had suffered?
Yes, there was a pool of blood around each of the bodies that extended out from the body.
I don't know. People respond differently. I don't know if tears are the thing I would be keying on.
Yeah, the police are here now. The police are here now. That's my brother.
Okay.
It's reported that the
When was the
brother's the
last
one that
time you
found
were here
Maggie's
with them?
phone.
Or talk to them or anything like that.
He could absolutely be in shock. And that could be true.
It was earlier tonight.
Whether or not he did this.
I don't know the exact time, but
Okay.
I left. I was probably gone an hour and a half from my mom's, and I saw them about 45 minutes before that.
Okay.
I rode around with Paul for 2 hours this afternoon in the pickup truck.
That's your son? Okay.
I agree with you.
Yes, sir. They've already checked them.
They did check them?
Yes, sir.
It's official that they're dead?
Yes, sir. That's what it looks like.
When you observed these victims, was it obvious that they had injuries incompatible with life?
Yes, any reasonable person that came upon those bodies would have come to a conclusion that they were deceased.
Yeah, we heard that yesterday.
Sorry. I'm very sorry.
It's bizarre he wasn't detained, and it's bizarre that the defense is arguing that this was a rush to judgment when he wasn't
Her
detained.
name's Maggie Murdaugh. Margaret Brandstetter Murdaugh. How you doing?
What's her birthday?
Pause it right there. What did the defendant just say? Let me back it up.
He said their names.
Margaret Brandstetter Murdaugh. How you doing?
What did the defendant say right there?
So while I'm in the process of gathering information about the two victims from Mr. Murdaugh, somebody walks by behind me and he pauses what he's telling me to say, "Hey, how you doing?"
How you doing?
He sounded
And who was
completely
that he
different.
said that to?
I thought that
I'm
was
not
the
100%
cop.
certain. I believe it was a fire rescue individual.
I thought that was the cop saying that. Because his voice sounded totally different.
9/15/68.
Okay. And what's your son's first name? You said Paul?
Paul Terry Murdaugh.
And what's his birthday?
Jason, do you have anybody
4.
coming through town that can stop and pick up that tent? I see lights off in the distance. What, are they covering them up? I got some getting dressed now, Sheriff. I'll have somebody stop and grab it.
Tell them they don't have to do that. They don't need to. preserve what we can.
I thought that was the police officer that said, "How you doing?"
I should try to be the old eight, because he's gonna be the only one that's got access.
What's Paul's
to where it is
birthday?
right now.
April 14th, 1999, sir.
Put it up as wide as you can.
That was odd to me.
That's fine. You said 99?
Sir?
He was born in 99?
He was born April 14th, 1999.
Okay. What's your first name, sir?
My name is Alex Richard Alexander Murdaugh.
Let me ask you this. In your interactions with Mr. Murdaugh, was he able to understand your questions and respond appropriately to what you were asking?
Seems like
Yes.
it.
Was he catatonic in any way?
No, he was able to answer all the questions that I asked him.
Was he panicking in any way?
He seemed upset, but I wouldn't say panicky.
He does seem upset.
Did you notice any labored breathing or anything like that from Mr. Murdaugh?
Yeah, he
There was some.
was breathing heavily. Never once did he complain about not being able to breathe. I mean, there were fire rescue guys out there. He didn't ask for any kind of medical attention or anything like that due to not being able to breathe.
Richard Alexander Murdaugh?
You familiar with the location?
Oh, I think in this circumstance, a lot of people might have to think about their kid's birthday. I sometimes transpose my two kids' birthdays.
No.
Sure.
Hey, Cody,
It's what I'm thinking.
come around the truck.
The how
and then
you
go to
doing?
the building.
The how you doing sticks out to
Come
me as
around the
well.
truck and then,
The how you doing
yes.
sticks out to me quite a
What's
lot.
that?
There's a set of footprints behind the trailer there too.
Who's that individual right there?
I'm not sure of his name. I just know that he works for Carleton County Fire Rescue. Carleton County Fire Rescue.
That's interesting.
That's why we kind of stepped out there and just so we step over you.
It's about 30, 4, 3. Eight's gonna be the last one in, and rather than 10.
In the background in the center of the screen, it looks like somebody's doing something with some yellow tape. Can you explain what that is to
Taping up the crime
That's
scene.
correct. That's Deputy Pruitt, one of the deputies that I supervise. I instructed him to put up crime scene tape to include that vehicle. We put up crime scene tape to try to keep people out of the immediate crime scene area, preserve any possible evidence that's there.
At this point in time, had you noticed any evidence of firearms such as casings or spent shells or anything like that?
Yeah, as I was walking through, you can't necessarily see it on my body camera, but as I was walking through, I could see shell casings, particularly around Maggie's body.
All right. And a shell casing, would they be for like a rifle round or a pistol round?
They
or-
appear to be rifle rounds.
And could you tell just from walking by what type of ammunition at that point in time?
I couldn't tell what type. I could tell that they appeared to be rifle, and that's about it.
And again, you weren't stopping to collect those. You were managing the
He
scene.
was
as you
marking it out.
described before.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Just go over to that corner of the building.
I'm almost to you. Let me see what we have first, and whether or not we're gonna handle that part or not.
What are you shining your light on right there?
So there in the background behind where Mr. Murdaugh is standing, you can see several sets of tire tracks. The grass was really wet that night, so those tracks appeared to be really fresh.
The
So
murder
it
took
caught my eye.
place
And why did it
June
catch your eye?
2021.
It just seemed odd that it appeared to be
He was not
that many
arrested till a
sets of
year later.
Tire tracks, since he said he pulled up, went to the house and came back. It just appeared that there were more than just that.
It appeared that there were more tracks than just that.
That's correct.
I see quite a few tire tracks in here. Were any of these you going in and out?
No, I came in here and I left one time and I came back.
Okay.
The rest of them, maybe
Okay.
from earlier, but
Okay.
only two are mine.
Did you go out this way at all?
No.
Well, they try.
In this trial, there are two, Maggie and Paul.
Hey,
There are
stay
other
with your
suspicious
shirt.
deaths
Got a whole bunch of stuff right there.
but they are not on trial here. And then the boat crash was the son, and that's never going to trial because the
The
son.
best way is probably going to be back through those rocks because we can't get any tracks off those rocks anymore.
We'll go back around the other way with this thing.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, I'll get that in a little bit. Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine.
Whose vehicle are you approaching right now?
That was the vehicle that Mr. Murdaugh said that he had approached that scene in.
Was that a black Suburban, to your recollection?
It is.
Yes, a young woman by the name of Mallory Beach was killed in the boat accident. Paul was charged with driving the boat. There are a bunch of civil lawsuits that were going on at the time and are still going on about the
There's
boat
several of
crash.
us out here. There's
Right
And
there, that would be Maggie's body right in front of that shed, is that correct?
That's correct. It's covered up by a sheet at this point.
a
He is the
long
murder
driveway
victim, so
right
that's
next
not
to the
going
mailbox
forward.
Says 4147, and you'll see all our lights down here. This shed thing.
You ain't come through Brick Hollow.
Negative.
That is the defendant's sister.
Delta 89 on duty, here out of Moselle.
I couldn't hear what he
Standing
said.
way off in the distance.
I couldn't hear what he
there.
said.
That would be Mr. Murdaugh.
Where did he spend the majority of his time while you were there after your initial interaction with him?
From this point on, his general time was spent in that area where he's currently standing.
Where is it? Because we
Pretty far
can't see
away
it.
from the scene?
That's correct.
Far away from the scene. So establishing that Murdaugh was not with the bodies of Paul and Maggie while the police, he didn't have to be dragged away from the scene. He walked away from the scene and stayed away from the scene. Which is different in my experience than a lot of cases where they come up upon family members that have died. But everybody reacts differently. The prosecution's going to argue that this is unusual. The defense is going to argue he was distraught and out of his mind.
What was occurring right there? with the
So what
other
was
deputy?
occurring right there?
Yeah.
So both of those deputies, or Deputy Pruitt would be on the left and Deputy McDowell would be on the right. Deputy McDowell was taking small pieces of crime scene tape and just setting them by shell casings, I believe. As road patrol officers, we don't generally have those little placards that you'll a lot of times see in crime scene photos. But to prevent somebody from accidentally stepping on them due to it being so dark out there, we tend to take something small like a piece of paper, a piece of crime scene tape, set it next to it just to indicate it a little bit better.
Again, part of the job of a first responder to sort of protect the scene until the crime scene investigators get there.
That's correct.
Both these individuals, were you supervising them that night?
I was, yes.
So they're going through the crime scene things. I'm going to answer some questions while we're hearing it.
Yeah.
Looking at this perspective
I
right
don't know.
here, to the left of the screen is whose body?
So the left right there in the forefront would be Maggie, and in the further back you can also see where Paul is laying.
Okay.
There is not a time limit like there was
Next
in
to,
Deptford.
in the kennel area?
Yes.
There is an estimate, but there's not a limit.
I think his brother. He said he was calling somebody. He said he was calling somebody.
They're talking about Alec.
There's a couple of showcases right there.
I'm grabbing questions as we go so I can get to them when there's a lull.
Y'all familiar with this family? Yes.
I wasn't until he told me names.
I'd be taking some notes. It's easier when you see it versus just hearing it to get a sense for what's going on.
Did you know this family prior to this?
I did not.
That's interesting to know. That question was dropped in there so casually.
What's that?
my God, the dog barking.
You said for Evo to do? Yes. Okay. Hey.
Who is Evo?
Evo would be Deputy McDowell's K9.
Oh, so there's also a canine on scene. That's going to complicate.
Huh? There are? Okay.
Who is that approaching right now?
That would be my immediate supervisor at the time, Lieutenant Lonnie Nettles.
The gentleman in the white shirt is the husband of her, father of him. That is Paul Murdaugh. This is his mother. Paul Murdaugh was that guy in the boating accident from a while back, if you remember.
Yeah.
These are officers talking to each other, it seems.
Just then, were you describing the boat wreck?
Yes, it had been in local news previously, so.
The boat wreck was
And it
big
was your
news.
understanding that Paul was involved in that?
In some way, I had no idea about the actual details of the case to know what his involvement was, honestly.
Most likely. He did have a firearm whenever I pulled up. It's a shotgun. It's been secured in my vehicle.
Yeah, they're clarifying because he mentioned it at the beginning.
You will have to give me just a few minutes, but yes, I will.
I couldn't hear what dispatch said.
That dispatch call, was that related to the case in any way?
I don't believe it was. I don't remember what that phone call ended up being about. As a supervisor, if a lot of us are tied up at one time, they will tend to give me a phone call to let me know that a certain call is pending or something else is going on. Just to help keep the radio traffic free, they'll call me on my cell phone instead.
Did your entire squad respond to this this particular call, or did somebody?
There was one deputy that remained in service.
Only one.
Did not respond here, but remained on the road.
Correct.
So the entire, everybody on duty responded but one. The crime scene is near the kennels.
Who's the most expendable that can start a log? Let's put it that way.
This is. Can you start a crime scene log, please?
A log started. Sleds on the way.
I imagine because they had every officer on scene, they have all of them.
Yes.
But they also might use their canine to look for
Start a
things.
log.
To that last
Get a
pole.
piece of paper. Start writing names and times. You don't have any kind of paper?
Who's that individual right there in the center of the screen?
That
To the
would be
right?
Detective to the right.
Yes.
That would be Deputy Pruitt.
And what did you just ask him to do?
Start a crime scene log.
And tell the jury what that is.
Sure. So a crime scene log is established as soon as additional people start to arrive on scene.
When the officer
document
came.
exactly who comes into the actual crime scene,
Who leaves.
as well as the exact time that they come into the crime scene.
Here, borrow that.
We can push it from that pole to that pole.
Yep. Sure. I do see some. That look old or fresh?
So they're walking through the crime scene. They're establishing the lab. They're establishing the timeline in the crime log.
Tape.
So I'm securing it to the corner of that part of the shed to run it along to a shed on the opposite side of that area. We just expanded the crime scene out a little bit further.
To protect a larger area?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
You don't need to speak more directly into the mic, or can you increase the volume, Madam Clerk, of that mic
I can hear him.
just a little?
This one that's working?
I'm referring to the witness.
Oh, sorry.
Increase his volume, or
The gallery's not full. So I don't even think they would need a lottery system today because there is a lot of space
Thank
left.
you. Chris?
Yes, sir. I usually don't have a problem being too quiet, but speak up for us if you would, please. All right, so you're securing the crime scene tape. Let's proceed.
I'll just hold the light for you.
It's so hard to listen to. I don't want to see the video, but it's hard to visualize for me just by hearing where they're walking around and what they're saying, because a lot of it is just a lot.
Just keep our fingers crossed.
A lot of walking noise, and that's tough.
Yeah, I think we got it.
This is 5-3, all the responding units to Moselle Road, stop at the road. No one else come down the dirt road. Stop at the road.
Sheriff 27, probably doing that 66 on 95. Coming.
What's the other way up here?
From back that way, I guess. Where the house is, I guess.
Okay, that must be.
You referring to the Whiskey Mike, left off with a key? Affirmative.
We've heard on this video the term Whiskey Mike. Can you tell me what that term refers to?
Yeah, when we say Whiskey Mike, we're referring to a white male. A Whiskey Fox or a Whiskey Foxtrot would be a white female.
And in the context of this particular
WF.
scene, who's the Whiskey Mike and who's the Whiskey Fox or Whiskey Fox?
The chat has already
As I was approaching, you could hear
testified
me say
about
to
this.
dispatch from our radio that there was a Whiskey Mike, the Whiskey Mike referring to Paul, Whiskey Fox referring to Maggie.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to freeze the feed. That's my fault. That's my fault. It's gonna freeze for a minute
Got it.
as I was sending stuff out. It's Buster watching the video.
To the very right of the screen, well, strike that. I'll wait.
Correct.
I believe Buster was born in like 1996. So what, 25, 26?
Like I was trying to say, I have a notepad, it's just I'm using the back side of all the paper, so all the front side of the paper has names and information on it.
Well, you can borrow mine for a minute. It's perfectly fine. Good.
Somebody's asleep in the audience already.
Don't you believe? Don't you
Alex's sister.
Do you not have any crime scene log sheets? Hey, it's 717. I was asked to give you guys a call.
1 second, I gotta grab something on my computer to a different screen.
Hi. Okay. Okay.
Alec was a redhead
I'll get
too,
back to you.
but his hair has gotten a little more white. I don't know what they're chatting about. The defense wanted this for completeness. That's why we're watching through stuff when the prosecution's not asking questions and things might not really be happening. In court, can you see the video? Not on streaming. This is kind of blocked with a box. The jury can see it, and they're trying to
recognize those
shield it from the
individuals?
audience. But yes,
I
I think
do.
some people can see
Can you
it.
tell us who they are?
On the far left would be Detective Tyndall. In the forefront toward the center would be Captain Chapman, and on the other side of him, in the lighter colored shirt with the black vest, was Barry McCroy, worked for Fire Rescue.
Okay.
So they're just going through this crime scene.
Did the sheriff respond to this particular incident, to your recollection?
Yes, he did.
But as far as who was the senior officer actually working the scene, at this point in time until Sled arrives, who was it at this point?
That would be Captain Chapman.
Captain Chapman?
That's correct.
I'm gonna grab a couple. I got some right here. Hey, you want us to close that in? Sure. Was that? You want us to close it in? Yeah.
There's a guy, I don't know if you want to what the other guy knows, whoever Eric is, or Mr. Caller. There's a guy over here that's wanting to talk to him, but that's only what he's
Don't even know who Eric is. I know Alex over there.
Alex.
Okay.
Okay.
There's a guy over here that wants to talk to him.
Yeah, but I didn't know if you wanted me to tell him that, or if you wanted me to just chill for a minute, or if you wanted me to escort him over.
He does not need to walk over there.
No, I mean a long way.
He does not need to go over there.
So you can stay there. Then.
He can't.
I think he was talking to another.
Let me ask
Yeah.
you this. Before you had referred to
I like how he's breaking up. I like how he's breaking
Yes.
up the video.
Was that a brother? Was he allowed to talk to Alec and go over to Alec?
I believe he did. I don't recall. I never
This is
actually interacted with him at all.
And then this discussion right here with
Alec's brother.
Deputy Pruitt, what was going on right there?
So there was someone that had arrived on scene and wanted to go and speak with Mr. Murdaugh. I told him to just wait a minute on allowing him over there so we could determine the best way to allow them to talk, simply because the crime scene was so large and we did not want to contaminate anything that didn't need to be.
If he's a suspect, they wouldn't be letting
To
anybody
your
talk
knowledge,
to
was
him.
that individual, whoever it was, allowed to interact with Mr. Murdaugh?
I believe so. He was eventually, yes.
People that arrived were allowed to go see Mr. Murdaugh, is that correct?
That's correct.
They
He
weren't
was not in
treating him like a
custody any time,
suspect.
is that correct?
No.
There's no rush to judgment there. They're like, sure, come on in and have a chat. It's said,
Caller and the caller's brother's name in here.
it's said that Alec's brother found Maggie Murdaugh's cell phone
Alright. I don't know where you were at. I just found the first empty page I can find.
down the road.
Female victim, male caller.
And then
They
these other guys,
have not
these
treated
other
Alec
things
like a
got the page
suspect
up.
yet that I've seen.
Just make sure you get the.
They pronounce it Alec. His name is technically Richard, so we could call him Dick, but we're not gonna, because then it'll get confusing between which lawyer is named Dick. But yes, his name is Alex. They call him Alec.
You know all this guy here?
He pronounces Murdaugh with a hard C. We're Scottish. The judge pronounces it Murdaugh.
Yes.
I often say Murdaugh. That sounds more like murder. I treat them synonymously.
What are you doing on the computer right here? Do you recall?
Yeah, so on those computers that are mounted in our patrol vehicles, we can see details of the call for service or other calls for service. In this case, I was looking at the information for the incident on Moselle to determine what units had been dispatched, what units arrived, and when they arrived, due to Deputy Pruitt trying to establish the crime scene log.
You use the term call for service, which is a police term, but that essentially means responding to any emergency or...
Any type of call, any citizen that would call our dispatch center to request law enforcement assistance or fire rescue assistance, it's called, we just refer to it as a call for service.
Jenny, this is a good question. I'm not saying they should or shouldn't. The defense argued that he was treated like a suspect from the second the police arrived, that there was a rush to judgment, that this was a forced investigation, that the only option for police ever was that Alec Murdaugh is the one who did this, and that's right now not what the evidence is bearing out. So I don't think they should or they shouldn't. I'm not making a judgment on that. It's just what is happening on this crime scene with this
I came on
police
scene at
footage
22:26.
is not what the defense has been
Yes.
arguing. That's all.
You say you came on scene at 22:26?
That's correct.
For those of us who don't know military time, can you tell us what that is?
Thank
That would
you.
be 10:26 p.m.
And that's June 7th, 2021?
That's correct.
So he got there at 10:26 p.m. That tracks with it taking him about 20 minutes. The police
Whoever
call was about
U21 is with fire rescue.
10:06.
Just write U21, fire rescue U21. And then
That was the same time as you?
he came on scene. Yeah, same time as me. It's fine. Medic 18 at 22:27.
Had it started to rain more at this point?
It might
Yeah, it had started raining at this point, yes.
Penny, yes, technically. It's like a John Grisham novel.
758 on scene 22:30. Same time as you.
This witness testifies like a lot of police officers. It's just
653 on scene at 22:39.
yes, no.
2239.
Yep.
Those numbers that you're referring to, what do those represent?
I'll let the chat let you know. I have
So
no
the
idea.
numbers would be the badge numbers of individuals arriving on scene.
You're just recording when various people arrived in the computer?
They're recorded in the computer, so when we arrive on scene, we let dispatch know our number and that we're on scene. They log it into the computer, and then we can then put it on our crime scene log.
Yes.
That's
If
all I
they
have
suspected him,
as
they
far
would have
as
isolated
times on
him from
this
the
goes.
beginning, and they did not. They had people coming in and out talking to him. He was talking to everybody. He was walking around. He was very clearly not being treated as if he was a suspect at this time. Which again is different than the defense's position. Yesterday, the defense argued in opening that the way that he was being questioned
787 Central.
is why he might have left out a few facts.
Copy. When you're clear, I have a call on Majestic of the suspicious vehicle.
The jury is in the jury box.
Copy. Where's that located? 223 Majestic Hope, wait in Cottingeville. 10-4. There's a Cottingeville unit that can assist, that'd be great.
Pretty sure Majestic Oaks is their jurisdiction anyway.
Well, they are talking.
I believe that's in our jurisdiction anyway. I'll take care of that.
That's fair, Jeanette. He's blonde, not gray. They've allowed Buster to stay. I don't know if they did an exclusion of witnesses. Buster wasn't at the crime scene, so if he's a witness to anything, it's none of this, and that might be why. He's not a witness to any of this. He was not there. This can't taint his testimony because he wasn't there. Ryan, this is a question, whether it was found or
Individual walking off to the left of the screen, who was that?
The one walking away from the screen or that just approached?
Walking away.
That was Deputy McDowell.
All right, and then the center of the screen, who was that?
The one that just walked up and is in center screen now would be Captain Kraus.
All right, and then next to him, facing the body camera?
That would be Captain Chapman.
All right, and then to the far right?
Detective Tyndall.
Greene Trailblazer.
it might be.
Correction.
I think they have to address it.
It's unknown what type of vehicle she had.
Were there dogs in those kennels to your recollection?
There were a couple of dogs. I don't remember the exact number, but I do remember seeing some.
I've never seen a defendant in a murder case be allowed to have gum in court. So if he is allowed to have gum in court, that is unusual.
It happened about 5 minutes ago.
Oh, it's time for me to switch to coffee. My water is gone. Coffee time. And again, the jury is watching as they walk around the crime scene with crime scene footage that we are not seeing, just hearing. I'm not upset by that. It is what it is.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to be looking through for questions. Oh, he might be eating a Tic Tac. I've never seen a criminal defendant allowed anything in court.
That discussion right there, did that have
Sometimes
anything to
not
do with the
even
crime
water.
scene or anything like that?
No, it was not related at all.
See, the thing is, he's been in jail for like a year, though, on other crimes. So they wouldn't let him have Nicorette in jail, I don't believe. He wouldn't have it in court. So.
What'd you just put on your hands then?
Those would be latex gloves.
And the gloves you put on that you described earlier to the jury, what were those gloves?
Those are more tactical gloves. They're not necessarily ideal for handling any kind of evidence, but due to me already being out there next to the shotgun, I did not have any latex gloves on my person, so I used what was available.
And why are you putting on latex gloves right now?
They were wanting to look under the sheet where Paul was, So just to prevent any kind of contamination of any possible evidence at all, we would just always put gloves on.
JP, question, why isn't he detained when they showed up to a murder scene and he had a gun? He was the calling party. They treated him as the calling party, not a suspect. And he told them where the gun was, and it's not unusual to have a gun. And he had an explanation for it. That's not unreasonable. So, this is a very different situation because this was a hunting property. It was out in the country. So him having a gun didn't automatically make them believe he was a defendant. They're clearly not. They're treating him as a aggrieved husband, father, and reporting party. They are not, at this point, treating him as a suspect.
I don't think you're gonna fit it in 300 blackout under there. Not unless it's the shortest 300 blackouts ever been made.
Sometimes they can smoke in jail, sometimes they can't. It depends on the jail.
What's that discussion about right there?
I'm
So
not an
the
expert.
whole purpose for even trying to look up under him was to determine if there was an additional firearm on scene already, possibly under Paul. There was 300 blackout casings found near Maggie. They were trying to determine if there was possibly a 300 blackout rifle under Paul.
And were y'all concerned that there may be one under Paul?
We just trying to rule it out as a possibility
And what was that possibility there?
that he could have shot Maggie,
And then did what?
Shot himself.
shot himself.
So you're looking to see if there's a gun underneath if he had shot himself and then fallen on top of it?
That's correct.
So they were asking that
I haven't
question
asked
first.
Dad about the phone, but Dad did say he came over and checked the pulses.
Did you see a phone near Paul when you arrived on the scene?
Yes, there was a phone laying on top of him near his back pockets of his shorts.
Okay.
I'm gonna back it up just a little bit. Is that it right down there at the bottom?
That's it.
So his back was up. Cat, you can't step on my you can't step on the mouse.
300 blackouts ever been made.
Fred, you have no chill.
I haven't asked the Dad about the phone, but Dad did say he came over and checked the pulses.
But they also said
Beyond that, I
pools
don't
of
know.
blood. So how did he check the pulses and have no blood on him anywhere?
He did have a shotgun with him, and I have secured that in my vehicle.
Yeah, but it's set up with a shot. Here's the one over the ceiling, one on the bottom, and it's laying inside. Yeah, but that's because he get his head on.
It's hard to hear. There's body cam. Guns are supposed to be locked in the case. Yeah, at the hunting property, that's not. I don't think that's going to be the normal procedure. It seemed like this property had guns kind of all over the place, and guns in the gun room. That's not odd to me.
Yep. So I've got multiple gunshots out of that window too.
Do we see a shell?
At least 3.
Shells.
Got it.
I'm not going
Right
to
to
go
the
with
left of the
normal
screen, there
on a
appears to
scene
be,
like this.
what does that appear to be to the very left of the screen?
It's odder
There
to
was
me
some
that
dog
there's no
crates
blood
over there
him.
on top of one of the dog crates is actually a dead chicken.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
A dead chicken
Okay.
on the far left-hand side of the screen.
They had been arguing about a chicken being killed by one of the dogs earlier. Oh, they're approaching.
It's difficult to see, but right here on top of that small dog crate was what appeared to be a dead chicken.
That's what the defense talked about in their opening. That Paul or Alec and Maggie were heard talking about one of the dogs killing a chicken or a peahen or whatever on the video that Paul took.
Yes.
You need in and out time or just time to ride? Like if they exit multiple times and come back in.
You don't need to keep doing all that.
Okay. I wanted to make sure before.
Yeah.
Well, technically the dogs, it's interesting because that lines up with what they were talking about earlier. That part is consistent, and we're looking at these little bits of physical evidence that make what we're going to hear from witnesses make more sense. So the chicken.
Is that's your lights on right there?
They argue
That's
that
correct.
the
That's
chicken
when I
was
was
killed by
really
a dog.
noticing
It
the
doesn't
chicken.
really matter. And they are still going through video. Well, they are going through video without audio, and they are not telling us what it is. I'm going to go through some of our questions so we don't get overloaded. From earlier this morning, feline or canine danger floof. This morning, my danger floof was a feline in my yard. Question about whether the issue with the email about juror identity could cause a mistrial. None of the attorneys asked for
Just so
anything.
you know, I've got at least 5 holes in the window in the back of that shed where rounds were exiting out the back that way.
Which is going to be because of the water number. You used to shut them on the guy.
It is
5
currently
holes
Yeah.
exiting. I don't know what's coming up next, but he's talking to the defense about it. So they're talking about exit wounds off of one of the buildings.
Let's stand for a moment.
Songbird stress, I also find no blood suspicious. He says he checked their pulse on the 911 call. He said he'd been up to it and it was bad. But the defense is also arguing he didn't shoot them. He had no blood. Well, if there's blood everywhere, not everywhere, if there's large pools of blood coming out from these bodies and the injuries that we're seeing, or the injuries that we heard about yesterday, and he had touched these bodies, there would have been blood there. So it's an interesting thing, whether he is trying to keep himself clean or not, whether that's something that can be interpreted into that he is willfully trying to not have blood on him. It's going to be interesting to see the two different attorneys argue it. The defense is going to argue, look, if he was the shooter, that he would be covered in blood, and the prosecution is going to be argue, well, not necessarily covered in blood if he's a shooter, and if he's a concerned father, why isn't he covered in blood? Why didn't he go and touch his son? And then he's asking multiple times, are they dead? Are they dead? But we heard the condition of these victims yesterday.
State will publish it this time, Your Honor.
So they were talking about publishing evidence.
Questions if I could.
Is the video done?
That would be, Sergeant Greene.
Mary P.S. They do not have the murder
Show
weapon.
you what's been marked as exhibit number 5 to your testimony to see if you recognize this image.
They've not said anything about the shotgun, but they definitely don't have the rifle.
Yes, sir. That would be an image from my body camera when I was looking at the tire tracks in the grass.
Hello, Matt Bond.
Have the put back to the Elmo, please. Your Honor, this time I would move to admit State's Exhibit 5, I believe, without objection.
Eric, this is a great point.
Any objection to State's Exhibit number 5?
You have all
Submitted
these
without
guns
objection.
around, and you don't grab the 30-round AR to protect yourself from the person that just murdered your
That has
son
been
and
admitted.
wife.
Thank you, Your Honor.
It's a very fair point. So they're admitting that still image?
All right, there's up on the screen that gray, but who is that person in the image right there?
That would be Mr. Murdaugh.
All right, and then just kind of in this area, it's more clear on the video, but that would be the tire
Yeah.
tracks you described earlier?
Yes, where I'm shining my flashlight at that point is where the tire tracks were.
I wonder if they'll argue that there's no other tire tracks. There's just the suburban tire tracks.
We
There's nothing
cut the
different.
video off after playing sort of the relevant parts, but what did you do for the remainder of this scene as the evening continued?
So the remaining part of my role would have just been making sure the crime scene stayed secure, people stayed out of where they weren't supposed to be. Investigators were handling the remainder of the investigation.
Did eventually anyone from the SLED, the State Law Enforcement Division, show up?
They did. I don't believe that would have been captured on my body camera, but they did, yes.
At some point, did you like to turn your body camera off?
I did. I cleared it with my supervisor, Captain Kraus, to ensure that I would not be needed for any additional investigative purposes, talking to Mr. Murdaugh, or handling any additional evidence. And once that was okayed, I turned it off.
And so that was consistent with standard police procedures and practices and when to turn the body camera off?
That's correct.
You just didn't decide to do it willy-nilly or anything?
That's correct.
At what point, just roughly, do you remember, did you clear the scene or leave the scene?
I don't think I left the scene until several hours later.
Were you still there when SLED crime scene arrived?
Yes.
Did you remain the entire time they were there, or did you leave at some point?
I would have left prior to the end of my shift. I couldn't tell you the exact time that it was, but they were
before 6
multiple
a.m.
units, including SLED and Carlton County investigators, still on scene when I left.
I'm still very stuck on what happened this morning with the jury.
That's all the questions after this witness, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
It's going to take me a minute to set up some of the audio visual stuff.
No.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take a break at this time. Please go to the jury room. Please do not discuss the case.
All right, we are on a break while the defense gets their tech together. How long is Rob's brother testifying? This goes faster on TV. This does go faster on TV. This takes a while. I've loved the kind of the colloquialisms in this trial. There have been a lot of them. It is not. Some things are very formal in this court. The way that the court or the way that the attorneys ask the indulgence of the court for time. Some of those things are very formal in this court, but other things aren't. We see the defendant either chewing gum or eating Tic Tacs or whatever. I have never in my life seen a murder defendant allowed to do anything in court other than sit there, generally with their feet shackled and their hands free. So it's very interesting seeing that Alec Murdaugh is being given, even though he's on trial for a double homicide, he is being given some leeway. Maybe that's the practice in this court. It would just surprise me. It would just surprise me. So let us continue on. I'm going to go for some of the questions, some of the stuff that we've gotten into here. What area of law did Alec practice? Personal injury, like, Tom Girardi. So with that, everybody's taking a bathroom break. Let's see. Question I just got here. What happened with the jury this morning? Oh, it's at the beginning of the stream. So if you want to zoom, but there was a letter from someone alleging that the court's order about the disclosure of jury personal identifying information had been violated. Both the attorneys reviewed the letter and went, and then kept going. So, let's see. New here. Emily, have you done many trials? Many, including murder trials. Let's see. 3:42 a.m. Still awake and can't wait. Kiwi girl. Good to see you. Lauren B said, Hunter here. My dogs go nuts when they hear shots, even when just at targets they associate it with them tracking down and finding the deer. That's a fair point. By the time police arrive, we definitely don't hear the dogs, but it raises some questions. And the opening statements raised some questions. If Alec Murdaugh was, and this is like a Legally Blonde argument, right? If Alec Murdaugh was at the kennels, mere minutes before Paul and Maggie's cell phones stop being responded to and interacted with by Paul and Maggie. So Paul had been very active on his cell phone, had been talking with a friend about a dog, had apparently been talking with a girl about going to a movie, and then stops responding entirely. You can assume that cease of activity correlates closely to the time of death, because that is why the activity on the phone has stopped. So if Alec Murdaugh is up at the kennels with them moments before the phones go silent, or the phones from Maggie and Paul stop being interacted with, then how did he not hear quite a lot of gunshots? ARs are loud. Shotguns are loud. How did he not hear the weapons. How did he not hear any dog barking if the dogs responded to the weapons? And then how did he not see the perpetrator? How did he not see the type of car that was leaving their property? This is a massive property. It's 1,700 acre property. He said that he drove when he went to go get a shotgun at the house because he was worried that there might be a perpetrator. He drove from the kennels back down to the house and then back, not walked. I don't need to drive to my garage. I don't even think I can't. It's attached to my house. There's no driving to the garage and then driving to the house and then driving back to the garage. So wouldn't you see a car leaving? And it's dark. The officer said he had to double check where he was because it's so dark out there. Well, if you're out in the country and it's so dark out there, he never says that he sees headlights. So to make his story that plausible, he can't have been there in the moments before when he's captured on video. And this is where we will start to see his alibi having some timing issues. But then also when we get to his alibi having timing issues, how did he have time, if he did shoot them, to go hide the murder weapons and then get on the road? What time was he on the road? What time did his cell phone start leaving the property? And that's what we will be talking about. So yes, he was washing his hair. He was in the shower. He was washing his hair. But his perm is still intact. Again, a Legally Blonde reference. So it's 300 blackout rounds are not loud, but the shotgun would be. Fair enough. I have not super well versed in weapons, but loud weapons would be loud. At least some. Because he was sleeping and then he can't have been sleeping. He can't have been up. If the cell phone evidence gives us a timeline, he can't have been sleeping when he was up at the property on audio, heard on video, talking to his wife about the dead chicken or whatever. So, wasn't he at his parents' house? Is that on the property? Not on the property. From the DA's timeline yesterday, it seems as if the prosecution is arguing that he committed the murders and then left to go visit his mom to manufacture an alibi. So, why were the mom and son by the kennels? The son was out there checking on a dog and sending Snapchats to a friend. Why the mom was out there, I don't know. I don't know where Buster was. I don't know if Buster needs an alibi. How long would it take for a profuse bleed? We're going to hear the coroner's report. I'm not going to speculate on that because I don't have all the information. But with these types of injuries, it would be sooner rather than later would be my guess. Oh, I did boop the floof. The floof is now curled up in the window. I presume looking for the danger floof. Nurse Hill, Ozark, and welcome to South Carolina, the good old boys club. So none of this is odd to me. Guns are common in most people's trucks in the rural areas. Yeah, the guns being around doesn't seem odd to me either. But I might not have understood it as well when I lived in Southern California versus living in Tennessee. But it's just a different culture. It doesn't surprise me at all that at this property there were ammo boxes around and guns around, and there's a shooting range on the property. It is a hunting property. That is why it is so big. Hi, Fred. Can you not with my coffee? Thanks, buddy. We're on a break. I got to do the talky things. After the break, we can fret around. Why was there not blood on him at all? Like none on his hands or anything. It's odd to me. I would have expected if he had checked their pulses, I would have expected at least you can tell when somebody wipes their hands on their shirt or their pants, you would expect some. I'm willing to bet that he planned ahead and had left a change of clothes at his mom's house. Always possible. We will see. But then the shirt that has gunshot residue on it might not have had gunshot residue on it. There's a lot of questions. Fred is just treating my desk like his own personal obstacle course. Question, does the prosecutor have to show that this is not how cops treat the suspect? I don't know if the officer or if the DA will ask that expressly. The defense might. I don't know if the DA will ask that expressly or wait and argue it if the defense keeps arguing it, because the defense brought it up in opening statement. So the DA might wait until closing. The defense statement in opening, so no, they don't have to prove it, but I think they'll argue it. I also imagine that a lot of people on the jury is like, oh, they were so suspicious of him. They let people wander up and chat with him. They let him wander around the property. They were so worried about him being a murderer that they didn't put him in the back of a police vehicle to even question him. A lot of people, even when people get swatted and they are not really suspected of being a crime, they often are handcuffed and put in the back of cop cars, not wandering around the property, even when they've done nothing wrong and nothing has actually happened, even when it's a totally nil. The defense said the accusatory way he was questioned that night, he might not have dealt all the facts. That was one of the things that really stood out to me from opening statements, that he might not have dealt all the facts because he was being questioned in an accusatory way. You know, the way that Dick got up and said that Paul, his former client, was just irresponsible. Feels a little accusatory, Dick. I know you're a defense attorney and it's your job. Question, why is Murdaugh sat with the lawyers and not in the dock? I don't know what the dock is, but most defendants sit next to their lawyer at counsel table during a trial. We saw it in the Johnny Depp Amber Heard case, but that is also what happens in criminal cases. Will the fact that he hired a hitman for himself be admissible at all? I don't know if they'll get into it at all. It happened well after the murders, so I don't see how it's relevant because it happened well after the murders. It does go to show, though, an act of desperation, though I also think it could cut to, well, if he's willing to hire someone to kill himself, why wouldn't he just hire someone to kill his wife and kid if he was going to hire people to do things? And the defense has already said it's more likely that there's two people. We'll see. Isn't it dangerous for the juror identity to be out? If it's ignored, something happened to one of them, the court would be liable. Government liability is a whole different issue. I don't know. And again, that's assuming, Amanda, that whatever the email was is stating something that's factual. It's very well that Chris Wilson said, you know, I saw on a Reddit thread XYZ, this information's clearly out there and it's just not true at all. And so the court and the counsel are not concerned because they all know that it's not accurate. So the email might not have been accurate. The court put it on the record. In these cases that are streamed, we are going to see more of this. I hate it. I hated the Daryl Brooks Reddit thread where somebody was saying that they were a juror still sitting on the case. It gives courts and it gives attorneys reason to argue that these things should never be allowed in court, or we should never be allowed to stream court. And it starts shutting down access to see the process at work. I was flabbergasted that Alec Murdaugh was trying to walk out of court yesterday with Tic Tacs in his suit pocket and then kind of brushed off the bailiffs or the sheriff's deputies when they're like, sir, it's time to go. He's just like, give me a minute. What the audacity? And I don't think it would have been such a visceral response if I hadn't seen it myself. As a DA, have you ever had a juror get sick from seeing graphic video or images? I have not had anyone get physically ill. I've had the very pleasant experience of being physically ill in court, but I was pregnant. I have seen people cry. I have heard people gasp. No, but I've seen people cry during victim testimony, witness testimony, that kind of thing. Jurors tend to be very stoic and they tend to really try to be stoic. And that is really their goal. So let's see. There was a question I wanted to grab. Question. Couldn't he have cleaned up when he went to the house to get the guns? Always possible. We'll see. Chris Wilson's an individual on the witness list if it is actually Chris Wilson who sent the email. Everyone knows Chris Wilson's on the witness list. He's been intertwined with this for quite a long time with a number of the other cases, but it doesn't mean the email came from him. We can't assume the veracity of any of it. The court says basically this email purports to be from this person and it purports to say this thing. We don't know if the thing it says is true. We don't know if it's actually from the person it purports to be. The attorneys made no motions, gave no fucks, and didn't raise it. I trust that the media will have access to that, and hopefully we will see reporting from those in court about that letter. But we can't assume that any of it's true. So, because we just don't know. Anyone can send an email. Anyone can say anything in an email. So the court's not going to act on it as if it's true. Matt Bond said he was washing his hair. Yep. Just like I was. Blocking screens so cameras can't see them. They were blocking screens so that the audience wouldn't catch them to try to adhere with the court order. Guns all over the property. Then why did Alec need to go all the way to the main house to find one? Also a fair question. And I want to know from the police if they recovered any other guns up near the kennels. Question, is there any chance of seeing Alex Murdaugh testify? There's always a chance. It would be, well, until the evidence comes out, I just can't tell you if I think it'll be helpful for him to testify or not. We're not even there yet, but it would be interesting. I'm interested. Do you have a choice to represent a suspected murderer? Well, I do. I'm not representing anyone. I am retired from criminal practice. But does an attorney that's a defense attorney have a choice? Private attorneys can choose to not take a client. Oh, I'm going to the court feed because we've got a glorious view of the judge's chair. It really is good. Damn it. I just wanted to see the chair. But defense attorneys who are private defense attorneys have the choice to be hired or not. Public defenders have much less choice. Public defender conflicts are something apparently I'm going to be talking about on next week's podcast of The Emily Show. If you don't know, I do have a podcast, The Emily Show, and Quick Bits, podcast number 2. It's a very short podcast. I know some of you are like, wait, it's short. If you have listened to Quick Bits either on the podcast or on my second channel, just let me know in the chat. Yeah, the judge has a throne made of leather. It's great. It's great. It is absolutely the boss chair of my dreams too. My chair is blue, but it's not that bossy. It's comfortable, but it's not that bossy. So for defense attorneys, we will talk defense attorney conflict. I think with what's going on in the Brian Koberger, Idaho case, we're going to have to chat about it a little bit on next week's podcast. Judge Darrow's hair would have looked fabulous against that leather. Yes, I don't know how Judge Darrow did it. Looked way better than me. Like by today, my hair is like, hey, we had energy yesterday. Today we're tired. Tomorrow it's going to be up in a bun. We've got like a 3-day rotation. So thank you all for sharing about Quick Bits. For those of you that are new here and have just found me, don't forget to do the YouTubey things. YouTube Quick Bits is the name of the channel, and there will be a link. It's fast. I like listening to your podcast as I do other things. A lot of people do. So just a plug for the YouTubey things. The Emily Show is my longer form podcast. Quick Bits is the shorter form podcast. Quick Bits is on its own channel. If you search Quick Bits, you will find it. So the Quick Bits is just the name of the podcast. The channel is Emily D. Baker Quick Bits, so you know that it's me. Let us continue to questions. They are still on break. If you haven't done the YouTubey things, where are we going to bing? If you haven't seen a bing, we might, because we were close yesterday. I can't imagine that we're not close today, but you'll get to see the lights flash when we do. So there are over 23,000 of you watching. So go ahead and just do the things. All right, let's stop doing those YouTubey things and start doing this. Are we aware of any possible motive? The prosecution in their motions argued that the financial crimes collapsing was the motive. The storm of all these financial crimes, and that the boat, what was going on in discovery in the civil part of the boat case with Mallory Beach, was the thing that was toppling the empire. So we'll see, and we'll see. I don't know. I think for a jury, it would be hard to look at, and maybe that's why the defense was talking about how graphic this is, talking about the butchering of Maggie and Paul, because a lot of people get into financial shit and don't kill their wife and son. And so for the defense, it's going to be, this and this and that. So Eric, I don't know under which theory of law you get to charge an animal with the killing of another animal. So I'm taking it for the cheekiness that it is. Who was the woman he was talking about going to the movies with? Oh no, Paul the son, Paul the teen was talking about the movies, not Alec. So the teen son was talking about the jury. Bring the jury. Bring the action. I need this judge to start doing the beginning of Britney instead of bring the action. Bring the jury. When I'm up in the club. Sorry. She's a voice reporter. You talk to the mask and it picks up the sound and turns it into text shorthand. The magic of technology. That's very cool. I imagine it saves the carpal tunnel for the court reporter. That's awesome. Question, even if AM is not found guilty for this, so if he's acquitted, will it be likely he still does jail time for all his other crimes? Oh yeah, he's not getting out of jail. Even if he's acquitted of this, or if the jury is hung, he's still sitting in jail. He's got over 100 indictments. Some things he's pled to and hasn't been sentenced for. Were the guns for Paul purchased before or after he was convicted of felonies? Well before. Well before. So these guns were all purchased well before any of this came to light. T said, hi, first stream I've joined. I've learned so much from watching your replays. This is the first stream I've caught live. Yay, T. Welcome from the UK. They're bringing the jury. Pity Mom said, Lawnard here recovering from triple bypass surgery this past Saturday. That's a lot. with you and your live coverage of this trial. Thank you for all you do with these trials. I'm here for all of it. You make recovery much easier. Well, I'm glad. Recover well, stay safe, and don't let this trial stress you out. I imagine that could be bad.
You may proceed.
Could the email give a reason for appeal? No, the attorneys didn't raise it as an issue. So there's nothing to appeal. Nobody raised it as an issue. If it's confirmed, we'll talk about it. We're getting into cross-examination.
Edification, I'm curious. I called over several weeks, left you voicemails. You can call me back and talk.
You didn't call me back.
I haven't received any voicemails.
You don't check your voicemails?
No, he said I haven't received them.
Did you call my cell phone?
No, I called your office.
Okay.
I don't have your cell phone.
Okay. It's possible they sent you to the wrong one. I don't know.
It's possible you didn't
spent
do it.
an extensive amount of time talking to Mr. Waters about your testimony, have you not?
I've spoken with him a few times, yes.
You're working with the prosecutor,
How
right?
many times?
3 or 4, maybe at least.
And has he reviewed with you the points he was trying to make?
We've discussed the body camera footage extensively.
Right. Let me go to a specific piece of video.
The jury's over here.
I apologize for not the AV situation requiring me to have my AV guys working there.
The sound is horrible. I'm going to look for another feed.
So, as he's preparing this, you indicated you were asked by Mr. Waters
Awful.
if there was
See if I can
water
find
on the ground.
something- see if I can find something
Right.
better.
It had been raining and you saw water, right?
That's correct.
And as I understand it, and we're going to look at the video in just a minute, that water was primarily...
It might be where
at
he's
least what we see in
standing
your
that's
video,
making it so bad.
On the concrete area around the dog pens, correct?
That's what it appeared, yes.
Okay. And let's go to that first.
Oh my God, the sound is
Share.
fucking hell. Oh. Sorry, the sound is killing me.
Sorry, your technology.
I cut that to see if we could get better sound on a different feed.
Share.
I'm gonna keep looking. Cause goodness. Sorry, y'all. It's killing me in my in-ears.
Back it up just a little bit, could you?
Because the sound is so gained up on the video that they're trying to show.
Okay, yeah, now start right there.
Just warning, the sound is just.
Share.
Okay, stop it. Now, you're walking down in front of the dog pens. Is this the water you're referring to?
Yes.
And you have dogs?
I have one dog.
You don't keep in a pen?
No, he stays in the house.
Okay. But if you had hunting dogs... and
Not a
you had
working
this,
dog.
Line of, how many pens do you think there were?
I honestly couldn't tell you. I mean, there's a
Does
lot.
it matter?
8, 9, 10?
Sure.
And are you familiar with the concept of washing a pen out after a dog defecates in the pen?
I've never personally done it, but I'm sure that's what you would do to clean out a pen.
Okay. And in the pen, I mean, there's water inside the pens and outside the pens, correct?
That's what it looks like.
Okay. Go ahead. Go to the next one.
Apologize to me, Dick. You're killing my ears, man.
Again, we're looking at the dog pen, and the water appears to be outside the pen on the concrete.
He's not standing near a mic, and the court reporter can't hear shit.
I think that the video needs to be stopped for counsel to ask this question and for the witness to respond.
I think so too.
You're posing a question while playing a video,
I'm sorry, Aaron.
or making a statement while playing the video.
I'm sorry, the technology again is beyond my...
It's, Your Honor, it's too hard for me to
Again, it shows the
stop
same area.
talking over the
There's
video.
water on the concrete.
I don't know why the
outside
water is a
dog
deal.
house.
We'll find out maybe later. They're making a deal of
Yes.
it.
Okay.
I don't know why they think it's a deal. So we'll see. This, look, we're learning along with the jury. I don't know. I can't explain it. I don't know why they care so much about the water. Is it because it was raining and so we've got to talk about the raincoat? Is it preservation of the crime scene? Is it that they were hosing down the cat? I don't know. The defense team should have a young enough lawyer that can handle this. Just hire
So
younger
again,
people.
This shows, actually, there's a light shining and you see a couple
Or someone
dogs.
more technologically-
So those pens are occupied by dogs. There's water outside the pen and inside the pen as if somebody attempted to
Muddy the
wash
water.
something out of the pens, correct?
There is water both inside and outside of the pen.
That
yes.
calls for so much speculation. What somebody was trying to do is all speculative. I don't know why it matters to them, though. I don't know who's... The prosecution seemed to get their tech together. Though I will say this is not just specific to one generation of lawyers. Most lawyers I have worked with, regardless of age, are technologically inept, and this
I
includes...
apologize, Your Honor, but the technology is more complicated than...
This includes
So,
lawyers younger than me.
Let's proceed on, let's see if I can clarify a couple matters. Let's talk about this shotgun. This is the shotgun that Mr. Murdaugh was carrying or had leaning up against the car when you got there, is that correct?
It was leaning up against that vehicle, yes.
And according to what you testified to just a moment ago, these are the shells, the chain of custody on the shotgun and the shell.
He's
They went together.
very close to the witness.
Whenever I released the shotgun to the SLED agent who took possession of it, I was unaware of any shells that may have been inside of it.
And then
at
the jury
time that it
box is
came to the-
right here.
That was what was discovered inside the gun, is my understanding.
He's very close to them. This is a fair point.
Would you publish this to the jury, please?
You would like me to read it?
Yes, please.
The Camo Benelli Super Black Eagle 3 12-gauge shotgun, serial number U573210E17, one unfired shot shell 12-gauge Federal, one unfired shot shell Winchester 16-gauge.
Okay, so there's a 12-gauge shell and a 16-gauge shell.
Yes,
12-gauge shotgun.
yes.
It's maybe way beyond your experience, but can you fire a 16-gauge shotgun shell from a 12-gauge shotgun?
Objection calls for
I wouldn't
speculation.
recommend trying it.
You recommend what?
I would not recommend trying it. I don't know that it would actually work or not.
Could it result in damage to the
That's fair.
person trying to fire the shotgun?
More than likely.
Jack, he's already said he doesn't have an answer to that.
It's
Objection's
speculative,
overruled.
but it
So
seems
you
like
could
common
not-
sense.
You can actually harm yourself. It could blow up if you pull the trigger on a 16-gauge.
He doesn't
12-gauge
know.
shotgun.
Objection.
I've never tried it nor seen it tried, so I don't
And the
know.
reason you don't do that is because you could have harm.
Objection. He
It's
said
possible.
he didn't know.
So.
He's just gonna
this
keep going.
shotgun, according to the chain of evidence you just read, has a 16-gauge and a 12-gauge in it.
Correct.
And was
This is
leaning
to
up
show
against
he
the
was
car.
so rattled he misloaded
It
the
was,
shotgun.
the shotgun was.
Now, I'm sort of interested
we saw in
as
opening.
to,
Sure.
I'm sort of interested as to why.
You're sort of interested.
Well, let me just cut to the chase on this. There's
But
discussion,
again,
this tape or maybe others, that there was a theory that Paul had shot his mother and then shot himself. Is that correct?
that wasn't a theory.
Out on the scene.
Yes.
She had been shot multiple times, and he had been shot with a shotgun, at least one of the shots.
This is
We all
so much
believe was
better.
upward. That's why his brains were all over the ceiling
That part, I don't know. I wasn't involved in that part of it.
at the scene.
I did not discuss anything being shot upward. I don't recall saying that.
Did
He
you
didn't say
hear
that.
discussions to that of your fellow officers?
Of a shot being fired upward? That's what it looked like they were saying, yes.
Okay.
But that's
And
hearsay.
further, I think in front of you, one of the officers saying that brains are on the ceiling, there's blood all over the place, correct?
I don't recall them saying brain was upward. I don't recall.
Okay. And further, you, as you're discussing this with them, indicate.
He's going to keep saying it until the prosecution
Make sure this
objects.
is correct.
The defense wants to tell the story through their questions and cross. The prosecution cannot do that. They can't lead on direct. They have to get the information from the witness.
You
The defense
indicate
wants
there
the
are
questions to be
multiple,
the
or someone
information.
indicates to you there are multiple
That's hearsay.
blackout rounds around Maggie's body in the vicinity, correct?
Not rounds, but shell casings.
All right, shell casings. Now, let me ask you this. When you got there, didn't the fire chief and the fire department arrive before you did?
Because this is
No,
going to
sir,
be
I was first
disfavored
on
by the
scene.
jury.
Okay,
And
did
they're
they
probably
arrive
like,
while you were there?
this is a bit much.
One of the
That's why.
fire rescue workers, I believe it was Barry McCroy.
And when you got there, we hear unidentified person, and in your notes,
you let it go.
indicate it was the
That's
fire
strategy.
chief, I believe.
Strategy. They don't object
Indicated
for
to
strategy.
you,
This doesn't hurt the prosecution.
Pointed out to you tire tracks, and you went over and looked at those tire tracks. And
I'm
there
going
were
to give you
multiple
every
tire
option
tracks
for objections.
coming and going, correct?
I don't know that someone indicated them to me. I believe I just saw them.
Okay. And what did you do to preserve those?
The tire tracks, nothing.
And you certainly are not an expert in tire tracks.
I'm not.
So you couldn't tell whether it was multiple vehicles or one vehicle.
No,
And it may have been multiple vehicles.
may have been.
Did you take pictures of the tracks?
I
He
did
did.
not take any pictures of the scene.
Instruct anyone
That's
to
right.
take pictures of the tracks.
No, sir, that's not my job.
When SLED arrived, did you tell them about the tracks?
No, sir, not my job.
You regret not doing that.
It's not part of my job description.
So what's your job to even tell them there were multiple tire tracks?
No.
If it had come up, if I had been asked, yes.
And in addition to that,
He secured the scene.
since they were not secured in any
SLED
way,
took over.
multiple vehicles, law enforcement vehicles and others drove over those tracks.
That's possible. I wasn't over there the
Oh.
whole time to know what kind of vehicles were driving in the area.
That's the issue. It wasn't
By the
preserved.
time SLED got there, did you strike that? You never took SLED over and pointed out tire tracks.
Not to my recollection, I did not.
Was there somebody there at this, with your department that
That
should
is a
have done
problem.
that?
I have no idea what they do with their job descriptions as far as what they point out to additional investigators.
On the scene.
Did somebody from fire and rescue point out footprints?
I believe on my body camera there is a fire rescue individual pointing out some footprints.
Okay, did you take pictures of those?
I did not.
Did you tell SLED about them?
I did not.
So
What-
nobody attempted to determine whether those were
He doesn't know that.
Maggie's footprints, Paul's footprints?
Calls for
or
speculation.
At least that night, there was no effort by you or your department to preserve those.
He doesn't
By
know that.
me, no, I cannot speak for everyone else.
Okay. And
Very good answers, very
let me,
concise. And this officer's not afraid of like, you didn't do that. No. You didn't do this. No. This officer
you
has
this.
nothing to be afraid of. He did his job. Those things are other people's jobs. So I always appreciate when an
How about
officer
go
doesn't try to
4439,
explain. He's like, nope,
please.
nope, I did my job. This is my job. But if those tire tracks weren't
Let's-
marked
let's
out or
watch,
preserved,
10,
I can
at
understand
least
the
10, if
defense
not
saying,
15 seconds
we don't
left.
know how many cars drove in and out. And I appreciate that. That is a good argument. We can't tell you there weren't different tire tracks. What we can tell you is nobody mentioned headlights. So, thank you, chat, for not calling this defense attorney out of his given name. I mean, his given name is Dick, but thank you for not calling him out of his given name. He's doing his job. And we're going to watch. We might not always like the way people do their jobs, but we're going to watch the way they do their jobs because this is a very, very experienced trial attorney. He is going to keep the prosecution on their feet. The way he asks questions, and he is trying to have the jury's perception go with his questions. The answer from the officer doesn't matter too much. He's going to start arguing, well, the police didn't do this, the police didn't do that. There was a rush to judgment. They didn't even preserve the tire tracks. People coming through in and out, blah, blah, blah. This is his job to go through this and try to poke holes. That is his entire job.
Okay, if you go to page 17.
But he's wandering around like, I don't know, like a free range pony or some shit. He's just all over this courtroom, and it's unsettling.
I'd object. They're putting a transcript that's not been.
No, we're gonna play the video.
You
It's up on
can't.
screen.
You can't put the transcript on the screen.
I apologize.
Can you take it down, please?
Whoopsie. Well, the prosecutor's like, no whoopsie doodle, muffin.
Well, I object to that. Your Honor, I object. This transcript's not been provided. There's no need for a transcript. The officer is here. They can play the video and he can comment on it.
The transcript being offered.
Not all, I'm using it to direct the audio visual man to the court.
Well,
Negative
you have
ghostwriter.
questions for the witness, questions for your IT guy. You're just reading, ready to proceed. I understand, and we're waiting for you.
The judge is not having it, and look at the prosecutor's face, bruh. That's that face, bruh. What are you doing? This is like my kid when I'm like, no, you're not done eating your dinner, and he's like, bruh. Willy Dilly, that's the pickle name. I think.
I'm ready. What was the time? 17.
I think this is the defense's tech person. At some point, they're getting a yodeling pickle. I love the judge. It's like, are we reading? Are you ready? Are we not ready? It's just, this judge is a delight. Free range lawyers make me twitchy. This is just never how my experience was. And it's funny that this courtroom is so formal in some of the languaging, but not formal in some of these rules that are so strictly enforced elsewhere. So it's it's different to me, and it's unusual to me, and it makes me a little itchy. Everybody needs to tweet legal that nobody's been tackled and all of them are walking in the well. It makes me uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable.
We're just still waiting for the defense to
Get their tech together. So the judge is so annoyed. So we're just here.
Rather than having to play this, let me just cut to the chase. It's
I
taking too
think
much time.
this is the first time these lawyers have ever had to use tech in a trial, which is wild to me.
On this tape, fire rescue person says to you, I believe you agreed with me, set of prints behind the trailer. You were told there's...
Jack, he's publishing again this
I'm
transcript.
not publishing, I'm asking you.
Your Honor,
Did you...
I object.
I haven't heard a question yet.
I'd like to make one. Were you told by fire and rescue there's a set of prints behind the trailer?
Yes.
Okay. And,
Well then.
did he tell you that they attempted to not disturb those footprints in any way?
I don't recall.
I'm not told, I'm asking.
He's already pissed off about the
Let me
technology.
further ask you, you asked Mr. Murdaugh, we heard this on the tape.
He didn't preserve
Talked
the
about the
footprints
tire tracks.
or anything else.
Coming
Wasn't
and
his
going.
job. He wasn't
You told
marking
me
out the
those
crime
weren't his
scene.
tire tracks, correct?
He did say that they were not.
Okay. And further,
Do you think he gets real pissed when his table's late at a restaurant? I feel like
he indicated to you, Mr. Murdaugh did, that he felt this was related to the boat case. And you indicated you knew about the boat case.
Oh, I want to hear about this. What?
Paul had been charged with 3 counts of felony DUI, killing a young girl and wounding 2 others, correct?
You didn't know
I don't
that.
know much details about that case.
I know that. Paul was your client,
But Mr.
man.
Murdaugh indicated to you that the threats made against Paul,
He did.
and that he even got in a fight once about it.
I believe he said punched.
Punched, okay. And so on the scene, he believed that Paul's death
He
was
can't.
connected to
Speculation.
someone angry about the boat case, correct?
Object to that, Your Honor, as to what he believed. Asking the witness what another person believed.
Is
Judge
speculation.
Vogel.
Thank you. On the scene, Mr. Murdaugh indicated to
What
you
did he
thought
say?
the death of his son was related
He
to
rephrased it.
his son's involvement in the death of the young lady and the injury of 2 others in the boat case, correct?
It appeared that that's what he was getting at, yes.
He said they were related is different than he thought they were related, and that's fair. Wait, what the fuck is happening with the audio?
Now, let's talk a little bit about
I'm stressed out.
the preservation of the crime scene.
Hearsay's allowed. In this context, hearsay's allowed because they're the statements of the defendant. They're the statements of a party opponent.
What did you do
what-
other than put yellow
what-
tape up to preserve
What
the crime
Alex
scene?
said to this officer is not hearsay. Well, technically it's
That is
hearsay
about
within
the
an
extent of
exception.
my job, is to put up the tape and make sure people that don't need to cross it, don't cross it.
And I noticed that there were officers walking around putting little pieces of tape near shell casings.
There was one officer doing that, yes.
And in the process of doing that, I didn't see any lights other than maybe a flashlight. Were there any, did y'all put up any sort of high-intensity lights so people could make sure they weren't stepping on something?
Look, I love a good cross.
At
I
that
just want
point,
it
there
to
was
be
no
good.
light, no additional lighting that had been put up, no.
But you and your officers were walking through that entire area, is that correct?
We were walking in the area, yes.
Okay, and did you actually walk, I mean, the feed room, and let me, maybe this is the best way to do this.
He just stopped in the middle of his sentence.
Oh, pictures, please.
He just stopped in the middle of his sentence. So he's asking, why aren't lights up? Why aren't we preserving this crime scene better? It seems like it was muddy. Wouldn't there be footprints? And if the officers are tromping all over the place, you're not going to see footprints. Who are the other footprints? But that also, it harms both sides. I think it's actually better for Alec that there's first responder boots all over the place, because otherwise, how many pairs of footprints would there be? Would it just be Alex, Paul's, and Maggie's? Or did we lose finding who did this because we didn't have the footsteps? Because we didn't have the footprints? Because we didn't have the tire tracks? So, interesting. It'll be interesting. Let's see. The chat's like, he's the first responder. He's not full CSI. Correct. Question, will they make the crime scene log public? I don't know. It's not going to be admitted into evidence because it's not evidence, so possibly not. But I don't know if anybody's done a Freedom of Information Act request. Those things normally come out later. Who is the MacGyver? Not this defense team. Possibly trying to get rid of possible evidence. I don't know. I think he used the water to keep the blood from drying. It's a very fair question. I think the state of the blood we're going to hear about time of deaths from the coroner. So, he's the type who snaps his finger at waitstaff. It feels that way to me.
Photographs. I'm going to use the Elmo in just a moment to show this witness.
Love an Elmo.
I'm going to offer these into evidence without objection by the state, as I understand it.
Once they're marked, I have no objection. I would note they're graphic and they need to be shielded from view.
Elmo ready?
So they are showing
Mark,
images to the,
what would the exhibit numbers be for the defense?
and these will be under the sealing order.
Defense 1 and 2 are admitted without objection.
I did not. This is my first experience with this judge, and I'm going to say if he streams anything else out of his courtroom, I don't care what the case is, we're watching it. I like Judge Newman.
So,
Oh, I'll do this at a longer break.
I'm going to first show you the picture.
Not inappropriate, Krista. Always an appreciated reminder of compassion and
That would be a
taking
picture
care
of
of
Paul.
oneself.
And the second one, which would be exhibit number 2.
Picture of Maggie.
When you say picture of Paul and picture of Maggie, these are crime scene photos, correct?
They appear to be, yes.
I'll answer this
Is
at
this
the break.
what you saw that night?
Yes.
Both of these pictures?
Yes.
Aurelia,
Exactly the
he
pic
might
that you saw
I
that
don't
night.
know.
Yes.
He might just be really uncomfortable. I don't know. I try not to read too much into people's behavior. All of this is weird. It's weird, and you never know what he might be responding to. I can't see what he's looking at, so I don't know. I think having a camera on his face, stuff will get right in, because it did look like he was smirking, but I also don't know. I have occasionally laughed when I've been terribly uncomfortable. What's an Elmo? Oh, an Elmo is an overhead projector machine. So it's like light on the bottom and it's got an arm and then it projects the image. So I don't know what else they're called other than an Elmo. I don't know what Elmo stands for. I'm sure somebody in the chat does because chat is Bay and y'all are brilliant. There's over 24,000 of you in here, so somebody's going to know what Elmo means. But they're trying to get the glare off the photos. So I try not to read too much into it. So, Emily, we're allowed parasocial crushes on good judges. Yes, we are allowed to stand the good judges. We are. And I'm even down for an entertaining judge. I like a competent one better. I'll take competence over entertainment every day. But this judge is competent and delightful. So, he looks a lot like his dad. So yeah, it's a document camera.
So as you look at this, I want to make sure I understand. One of Paul's feet is still inside. This is the feed room behind him, correct?
Yes.
And
y'all are so smart.
His head, lots of blood, and this would be a part of his brain lying next to him, correct?
I don't know if that's part of his brain or not.
He's not the coroner. He's an officer.
All right. So it's fair to say.
Why?
You didn't know whether it was part of
Why?
the brain. When you first saw him, you didn't know whether his injuries were catastrophic and he was dead, or did you?
It was very clear that it was catastrophic.
Okay.
He was missing his skull.
Now, when
I don't know what happened to the camera feed.
When you came upon the scene, clearly
we're just going to roll with it.
Room was part of the crime scene, correct?
Yes.
Now, you're taught to keep
see if anybody else
crime
looks like
scene pristine, correct?
As pristine as possible, yes.
There was no reason for you to go in there, was there?
Me at the time, no.
This is a court TV.
Was there
This
any reason
is
for the
not
police
happening on court
before
TV. So
the slave
whatever law and
folks
crime
showed
is
up? Was there
doing
any reason for y'all to go in there?
is causing it to be blue.
There was no reason for me to go in there. I cannot speak if there was a reason for another officer to have gone in there.
It's blue on
Let me ask you
WFLA's
this, do y'all
feed
have
too.
any sort of crime scene expert at
White balance.
with you that night? Someone that processes crime scenes.
Where's the white
Investigators
balance?
do process crime scenes.
Okay. Do you remember going in that meeting room?
I don't remember if I did specifically or
But
not.
you shouldn't have if you did, correct?
It's not to say that I shouldn't have. If there was something that needed to be done in there,
Stop
then yes.
judging me is what he's
I guess
saying.
what I'm getting at is, I think one of the, and you would agree with me, one of the cardinal rules of a crime scene is keep it pristine. Don't walk over things. Try to preserve
Robin, the
tire
chat
tracks,
is
get
slowed.
pictures of them, footprints.
It is
All
slowed.
those sorts of things.
Oh, it
Was
might have
somebody
been.
with the officers with you, were you in charge of the scene?
I was in charge of the deputies that were under my immediate
might have
supervision
turned off the
until
lights,
someone
changing
higher
the
than
white
me
balance.
arrived on scene.
And were those deputies directed by you or anyone to do something to preserve the tire tracks, pictures?
Me too. Look at, we're just going to match.
I did not give anyone that instruction, no.
So you didn't do that. In terms of Paul, where Paul was laying, was anybody instructed, put a cordon around him? There's no reason to go into the feed room. There's no reason to do anything obtrusive until the SLED crime scene processes. They're on the way at this point, right?
I believe they were, yes.
And so if okay. So
He's using the officer whose job it is not to do all these things
and identify this
to say they didn't
That's
do their
Maggie
job.
Murdaugh.
Your Honor, may we approach your group?
Oh. So they're using this officer who none of this was his job to say that this was his job. If we're going lights out, I'm just going lights out too. I'm teasing. So they're using this officer to say, hey, you didn't do this, you didn't do this, you didn't do this. And the officer's like, well, that wasn't my job. And this wasn't, it's not that I didn't do things. It's that those weren't my things to do. So yes, I did not do them because they were not mine to do. That is literally not my job. And when you come to policing, there are protocols. You're not your job. You're supposed to be doing your job. So with that, they are going a long way to use this officer to try to show that this investigation was not well done. And then we will get into more. So why is Dick trying to blame this officer? I see the questions in the chat. He's trying to point out to the jury that this was not a well done crime scene. It fits their theory of the case. They believed Alec did it. They weren't preserving any of the evidence. They weren't actually trying to look for a murderer or the murderer. They just thought it was him. I think how this officer treated Alec at the scene cuts against they just thought it was him. He was not cuffed and put in the back of a car for his safety, for officer safety. This is a property that has guns quite in a lot of areas. None of these officers were afraid of Alec Murdaugh. They clearly didn't think he committed a double homicide. You could think somebody commits a double homicide and has access to more weapons. What you're going to do is put them in the back of a cop car in handcuffs. They didn't. So this officer's just answering honestly, not my job, not my job, not my job. But this is a long cross that doesn't seem that seems kind of pointless, truly. But this is not, I want to know why the first officer on the scene isn't responsible for this. Because they are trying to still assess the scene and secure the scene. Others are on the way.
Sorry. And can you identify this for the jury, please?
They've touched the thermostat.
It's Maggie Murdaugh.
After she's been killed.
That's correct.
And by the way, when you saw her was it apparent that she was deceased? Do you believe? But have you ever seen a dead body before?
I have seen multiple, yes.
No, these are windows.
Yes.
So
Those are
you're
windows.
sort of an expert in this
I
area.
think.
Who's dead, who's not, who ought to get
Or at least from the
EMS
hallway.
there to check them out or not, correct? You make that call often.
Yes.
Okay. But you could understand, obviously, Alex Murdaugh's concern that they might be alive, that maybe, you're not saying that he shouldn't be concerned if somebody check out both Maggie and Paul to make sure they were dead, right?
He was very concerned about that, yes.
Okay. Now,
They thought
as to,
that was their first theory.
Maggie Murdaugh, we see these numbers. Did y'all do these numbers, or were they done after y'all were there?
I don't know when those numbers were done. They were not placed by myself.
For your team?
I can't say that for sure, certain.
We see that in the video that they're putting down
He's being
yellow.
very careful in his
They're not
answers,
putting
which
these
is
down.
appropriate.
That's correct.
Now, you also, according to the video we saw, a number of your officers are walking around marking where cartridges are, right?
Securing.
They were.
Did they pick any of them up?
Securing
No,
the
not to
crime
my knowledge.
scene
Well, later
doesn't
on, we
mean
see
preserving the
them
crime
talking to you
scene.
and others on the video where they're saying these rounds came from a blackout. They were blackout rounds.
We'll talk about that in a minute.
300 blackout, yes, sir.
Right. Did they get down on their hands and knees and look, or did they?
You would have to ask them. I don't know what they did to know that they were 300 blackout rounds.
I don't know. Not my job. I don't know. Not my job.
Well, who are those officers that were
I don't know.
walking around?
Check the log.
Her without a light on, perhaps stepping on evidence. Correct.
He's waiting.
Who are those officers?
He's waiting
Deputy
to eat.
McDowell and Deputy Pruitt were both in that area.
Were they doing that pursuant to your instruction?
They were not specifically instructed to do it. They were just took the initiative to do it.
Okay.
Oh, this is not a bad this is not an aggressive cross-examination on law enforcement. This is a standard or typical cross-examination on law enforcement. This is exactly what I would expect, and this is exactly what we see
Do I have to turn the elmo off?
in almost every case where they cross-examine law enforcement. This is on the milder side of mild. So this doesn't surprise me at all, but I also did this.
Okay, so this is
So I love seeing your perception of it.
your officer is putting a sheet on Paul's body?
Not putting a sheet on. The sheet was already there.
Already there, okay.
Very adversarial. This is not terribly adversarial.
Fire rescue might have some more sheets we can steal.
That's why it shouldn't be by law enforcement.
It's more for it.
Oh my God, everyone's all over the place in this courtroom.
Standing inside the feed room.
Just inside that doorway was Deputy McDowell.
Okay. Were you present? Oh, is that your body cam? So you're watching him do it, right?
That's correct.
Should he have done that?
Stand where he's standing.
Should
Standing inside the feed room.
he can't tell you that.
It's part of the crime scene. We're all standing inside of the crime scene.
Inside what?
The crime scene. We are all standing in the same crime scene.
It's a big crime
You stand in
scene.
the same crime scene, but clearly you believe, based on discussion, and everyone in your unit believed, that the fatal shot was made where he's basically standing, correct? That, in that area?
They didn't determine that yet.
Where we are all standing.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Is that procedure to walk around on top of an area where shots have been fired? That perhaps, and I think even in this, they're talking about tissue or brain matter laying there. I mean, aren't you supposed to, you don't put anything on your feet?
There's not a question in that statement.
Let's sustain, let's pose questions.
Did you in any way have your men or women put protective gear on their feet?
He wasn't directing the crime
I saw you
scene.
put gloves on, but did they put anything to insulate themselves from contaminating the scene?
Not
On
his
their
job.
feet, no.
In many instances,
That's the role of cross-examination.
departments around the country have people dress in a gown to keep
I
their
also hate all the
DNA,
zooming. I might
their
switch feeds
hair
after lunch.
from contaminating the scene. Did you do that?
We do not on road patrol of Colleton County as standard practice, no.
You do not do that.
Not a standard practice, no.
Have you ever done that?
I have not.
Have you ever had something covering your feet when you're walking on a crime scene?
When you try to
I
delete
could
the
tell you that
comment.
for sure.
Now, if
And
you later
accidentally bring
on
it up.
find, and did you notice bloody footprints? Well, first of all, did you notice bloody footprints inside the feed room?
I don't remember seeing any.
Sorry?
I don't remember seeing any bloody footprints.
Okay. If there were bloody footprints in the feed room, could they have been created by you or your men?
They could have been created by anyone walking in that area, sure.
And you're walking in there, or your men are walking in there, correct?
Yeah, correct.
And you think that's standard operating procedure?
I see an expert
Well,
in
you do your
procedure.
best not to contaminate anything.
And this is your best?
What you're looking at right now is standard procedure.
To walk
And this is your
in an
best.
area where there's blood, where there's brain matter, where there's, and I believe there's wadding.
That assumes facts, not evidence. No one's established
I
that it's
don't
brain
recall.
matter, by the way.
But you would agree with me that you have these procedures so that you don't contaminate the crime scene, so that you don't destroy evidence like those tire tracks, or those footprints, or leave your DNA, or in some way alter the scene so that if, I mean, you would agree with me, so that, let me finish the question, so that if there is exculpatory or inculpatory evidence that would help you find the perpetrator and prosecute him, or evidence that would clear somebody, that was destroyed. Some of that was destroyed that night because your department, and
Is there
maybe
a
even
question?
SWAT, didn't
Compound
preserve that evidence.
Calls for
Isn't that correct?
speculation. I would
I'm
object.
not sure if I fully understand your question.
That's
The
because there's
question is
7
this:
questions.
if you are exploiting your standing, your men are standing in the spot, and there was evidence there, or the tire tracks that weren't preserved, or the footprints that weren't
Turn
preserved.
off your phone.
That evidence could either incriminate somebody or exculpate somebody. Could, correct?
Could, yes.
That's why you don't do this, right?
Do what?
That's why you don't contaminate the evidence, correct?
Yeah, he's trying to assume that they did contaminate something. All right, a lot of assumptions being made in that cross-examination. That's what cross-examination does. For all of you that are like, it feels like Dick is testifying. Yes. In cross-examination, the lawyer wants their questions to be what sticks out in the mind of the jury, not necessarily the answers. The answers just kind of prop up your cross-examination. They're not really all of it. Why is the state not objecting? Because it probably doesn't matter. The defense is going to do this, and it's probably annoying the jury. Oh, lights are back on, and white balance is fucked again.
We put it around the whole area.
Did you put it so that folks couldn't drive
Oh, this courtroom is
in and out?
chaotic. It's
They
weird.
were not to go past where my vehicle was parked. I believe that was the extent of the yellow tape.
Yeah, but between your vehicle and the entrance, there was none of those tire tracks were preserved.
Entrance
People had to
of-
get in.
The property. That if somebody driven into the property
You mean from the main road of Moselle
from
Road?
the main road,
All the vehicles were coming in on that driveway.
right? So if somebody had come in and left, who committed the murders, whatever tire tracks that were left were obliterated by your men.
that right? It's possible.
He doesn't know that. The police vehicles had to get into the house. How does police and first responders get to a murder scene if not driving on the road?
Given my extent of the time there, I would assume so, but I don't remember
But you don't remember
specifically.
seeing the coroner.
I may have. I don't remember specifically.
Apparently, according to the body cam, you didn't talk to him.
Not on my body camera, but it could have been after the body camera was turned off. I don't know.
And why'd you turn it off?
Why was the body camera turned off?
Yes.
Once my specific job of doing any primary investigation after my initial arrival is completed and I'm not going to be doing anything further to investigate, it's no longer needed.
Yep. Redirect.
Hey, police and court. You were asked a series of questions about contaminating evidence. Are you aware that any evidence was contaminated in this case?
I'm not.
Did you engage in everything you could to avoid contaminating evidence?
Yes.
Did you in fact instruct your deputies, set up a crime scene and instruct them to avoid areas where evidence might be contaminated?
We did everything we possibly could to avoid contaminating evidence.
Your officers all have basic training in trying to avoid contamination of evidence?
Yes.
Are you also, though, as first responders in a fluid situation, doing the best you can to assess what's going on?
Correct.
It's not your job to do the actual crime scene investigation work, is that correct?
Not at all.
You were asked about whether or not you'd had any meetings with prosecutors. Is it common for law enforcement witnesses or any witnesses to meet with the prosecutors prior to a trial?
Very common.
Did anybody ask you to do anything but express your accurate and honest opinions and observations about what you observed at this scene?
No.
Is it lunchtime yet?
You were asked about this particular shotgun.
I feel like I'm being yelled at.
This 12-gauge shotgun. This is the shotgun that Alec Murdaugh had when you arrived at the scene. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you didn't
were asked
arrest
about
him.
the shells right here. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Did you unload this weapon?
I did not.
Was it unloaded by somebody else after you turned it over to them?
Yes.
This is redirect.
You asked a little bit about
These aren't leading. These
the
are
300
open-ended.
blackout casings or cases that were at the scene. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. And just real quick, explain to the jury what a casing or a case is, please.
So a casing would be what would be left
definitely
after the
PCE.
projectile has been fired through a weapon.
After it had been fired, the shell that comes out of the gun and lands on the ground near the victim. Is that
That's
correct?
correct. That's correct.
So it's the remnants of a fired round. Is that right?
That's correct.
There were multiple ones of those blackout surrounding Maggie. Is that correct?
That is correct.
You were asked a lot about the tire tracks, and you just happened to notice those over behind the defendant's vehicle. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And we had a still image put into evidence, exhibit number 5. This is it right here, which is the still image. Is that right?
Yes.
Those
All
are
right.
tire
The still
tracks.
image doesn't reflect as good as what the video does. Is that right? You can see it
The
clearly.
video shows it much better.
Much better. All right. Were these like tracks in the dirt, or were these just impressions in the grass, in the dewy grass?
They appear to be impressions on the dewy grass.
They weren't like tracks in the dirt that you saw, correct?
No.
All right.
So like grass was driven over. Well, you're not going to get any tread on that. You're just
I'm
going
gonna
to
go
see
back
flat
to
grass.
the video.
That's a very good clarification because we can't see it. So I was picturing tracks in mud, not tracks in grass or dewy grass, which, by the way, when I moved to Tennessee, everybody just kind of parks everywhere. Like when you're going to like a sporting event or like a
playing
kids
it
football
at
game,
approximately
people are parked on the dirt, the
25
grass,
minutes
the
and 11
gravel,
seconds.
up on the big old trucks parked everywhere.
From earlier, but only 2 were mine.
Did you go out this way at all?
No.
Oh, I also feel yelled at. I also feel yelled at by Creighton Waters' tone right now. I feel like I'm being yelled at. I feel like I'm in trouble. I'm like, I didn't do it, I swear.
Just go over to that corner of the building.
Mind your pets.
I'm almost to you. Let me see what we have first, and whether or not we don't.
Yeah, I didn't understand it. Now I do. I feel like it's like, yeah, okay. Tracks on grass. I get it now.
I see quite a few tire tracks in here. Were any of these you going in and out?
No, I came in here and I left one time and I came back.
Okay.
Absolutely. I love it. I'm here for it. I saw somebody called it free ball and parking. Yes.
From earlier, but
Okay.
only 2 were mine.
Did you go out this way?
So the images that we just saw, those were the dewy impressions in the grass that you were just talking about. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And the defendant said 2 of them were mine, and the rest of them may have been from earlier. Is that correct?
Yes.
It's a lot. He's just like,
You were asked a little bit about
good, take a
the
breath.
boat
Good.
case.
Good.
Did you have any detailed
Thank you, Creighton.
knowledge
Just-
or understanding of the boat case when you arrived at the
Take
scene?
it. Let's take a breath.
No.
Let's take a breath. Let's all
Just
just
knew very generally
woo,
that there
take a
was some
breath.
boat case. Is that right?
Yes, it had been in the news.
Did you even realize that this was that Paul Murdaugh when you arrived on the scene?
Not until he had brought up the boat incident.
And who brought up the boat incident?
Mr. Murdaugh did.
And within a few minutes of you arriving, he's the one that brought up the boat incident. Is
He
that
did.
correct?
He
And
did.
he offered that right out of the gate as a possible explanation for what happened here. Is that right?
Yikes.
Yes.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Yep, good.
Anything further?
Your Honor.
You bet there's going to be a recross. When are we cutting it off on redirect recross?
Did you find it unreasonable for him to say that his son, who'd been involved in this incident, who'd been threatened
Is this an opinion?
on numerous occasions, been punched?
He didn't know he'd been threatened. That
He told
assumes
he'd been
facts.
punched, right?
He did.
Okay. That was a possible explanation, not implausible for somebody killing Paul. You didn't bite back on him, did you?
No.
What was the question? You didn't bite back on him?
And it
Or
was,
it wasn't
in
plausible?
his mind, apparently
Compound.
the only reasonable explanation that occurred, right?
He doesn't know what his
I don't
state
know
of
what
mind is.
was in his
Objection.
Well, I mean, that's what he told you. That's what he believed.
That was the statement that he made, yes.
Okay. And just one other follow-up question. You were asked if there was any evidence, the Dewey tire tracks. This was at 10 o'clock at night. Was there dew on the ground already?
It was pretty humid out. There was a lot of
It was
dew.
humid.
Yeah.
It wasn't in the morning.
This was not morning time.
So, but.
No, it was
are
not
you
morning,
telling
it was
me no
night.
one could have looked, no expert could have looked and said, you know, that's a Suburban,
He didn't make that statement.
that's a pickup truck, no one could do that?
He didn't
I'm
make
not
that
going to
statement.
pretend to know what an expert in that kind of stuff can and can't do.
But you're not an expert. Did you
I'm not gonna
believe those
pretend.
tire tracks would last until SLED got there?
Yes, it appeared that they probably would.
Did you point them out to SLED?
Did I do it?
Did you point them out to SLED?
I did not.
Done. We're done. We're done. Sit down. The grass was wet.
You may step down.
He didn't even say he was done. He just stopped asking questions. So no, in civil cases, sometimes you will see a
Call your
redirect
next
and no
witness.
recross.
Thank you, Your Honor.
We're going to another witness. We're not taking a break for lunch. It's noon.
The state calls Corporal McDowell.
All right, Corporal McDowell is witness 2. That was long.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you give to the court in this
All right.
trial
Prosecution,
shall be the
second
truth,
witness.
so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. If you'll have a seat and adjust that microphone, make sure you speak into that microphone. State your name and spell your last name, please.
My name is Chad McDowell. The last name is spelled M-C-D-O-W-E-L-L.
Corporal McDowell, how you doing today?
Are you a
Good.
Chad?
Tell the
Chad?
jury where you work.
You like it?
I work for College and County Sheriff's Office. I'm assigned to the road patrol as a canine handler.
Okay, and can you just
He's
give
the
us a
canine
quick
handler.
background of who you are, where you grew up, and how you ended up in your career in law enforcement?
Sure. I grew up in College and County, went to College County High School, went to college at Tri-County Technical College, where I studied criminal justice. Once I reached age, I came home, was hired by College and County Sheriff's Office, left for a couple of years to go work for Jasper County, and then came back to Colleton. I've been assigned to road patrol at Colleton.
All right, and what year did you first start working for Colleton County Sheriff's Department, or began your law enforcement career?
2016.
And what's your current, you said you're a corporal now, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Chad, I see
What is your
you.
current assignment? What are your duties?
I'm still assigned to road patrol. I'm a canine handler.
All right, and you say canine, explain to the jury what that is.
He's the doggo
So I have a canine that is
handler.
assigned to me.
We
We
love the
respond to
doggo
certain
handlers.
calls for, if we're requested by another deputy for narcotics searches for suspects, things of that
I think
matter.
we're going to see a lot of that in
Canine
this
is a
case.
dog, correct?
That's correct.
So
All right,
far,
what's your
both
dog's
officers
name?
grew up
Eva.
here.
Eva, what kind of dog is Eva?
He's a Belgian Malinois.
Malamore?
Yep.
Is that kind of like a German Shepherd?
No, it's a Belgian
Kind of
Malinois.
short-haired, pointy ears.
Okay.
No, it's a Belgian Malinois. Belgian Malinois are
Is
used quite a
Evo
lot
typically with you when you're out on
for
patrol?
canine.
Yes, sir.
Was Evo with you the night of June 7th, 2021?
Yes, sir.
Were you a corporal then at that time?
No, sir, I was a deputy.
All right. And who was on the squad that you were on?
Sergeant Daniel Greene, Corporal Elise Janicki, myself, and Deputy Pruitt, Cody Pruitt.
And so who was your immediate supervisor?
It would have been Corporal Janicki.
I was
And then
waiting for
above
him to be
that
like,
was
and Chad, in
Sergeant
your free
Greene.
time, do you
And
run
then above
Spartan
that-
races?
Lieutenant Nettles.
All right. And then above that?
What's your favorite
Captain
restaurant?
Krause.
Okay.
It would be completely inappropriate.
What shift were you working the night of June 7th, 2021?
Yes, sir, I was.
And that was in Colleton County?
Yes, sir.
And what shift were you working that night?
Night shift.
I speak from personal
Did you
experience.
ultimately respond
You do not want a
to
Belgian
call for
Malinois
service
police
at
dog in court.
4147 Moselle Road?
Yes, sir.
It
And
does
you
not
actually
go
went
well.
there?
I did.
And did you come to the incident location at the kennels at that property at 4147 Moselle Road?
I did.
Is that in Colleton County?
It is.
Were you, when you arrived, what other first
Most departments
responders
I've
were
worked
on
with
scene
used
to your
Malinois.
recollection?
Sergeant Greene was there. There was one other fire rescue personnel vehicle in there. I believe the rest were staged, best I can remember. When I say staged, I mean at the head of the driveway. There may have been a couple of other apparatuses on scene.
And which, do you recall which driveway you entered? Did you enter the driveway near the kennels? Where you came upon the
Yes,
kennels?
sir. It was same driveway everyone
Okay,
else entered.
maybe we'll
So
tell
you
the
were
dog
parked
court story
behind,
again at the break.
Sergeant Greene.
Greene's?
Yes, sir.
What did you do after that? After you got out of your vehicle, what did you do?
I approached the crime scene. I was trying to make my way to Sergeant Greene to see what he needed me to do. I made my way through the crime scene as carefully as I could. I approached Sergeant Greene,
They are very smart.
saw that he was interviewing the only person on scene, so I went back to my vehicle.
And did you see who he was interviewing?
Mr. Murdaugh, yes, sir.
Do you see him in the courtroom here today?
Yes, sir.
Can you point him out?
Yes, sir. He's in the middle, navy blue suit.
Your Honor, can the record reflect he's identified the defendant? It does. I'm going to show you.
It depends on the department,
what's
but
been
even if
marked
they do take
as
their working
Exhibit
dogs home, they are normally kenneled outside. They are not pets. They are working dogs. When they retire, sometimes they will become pet animals, but they
I
are
want you to take a
working
look at it
animals.
and see if you recognize this disc.
So it depends on the,
Yes,
it
sir,
really
I do.
depends
All
on
right, and what is
the
on this disc?
department.
It'd be body cam footage from my body cam that I wore.
All right, and how do you know that this is that body cam footage?
It
More
has my
body cam.
initials on it.
All right, so you reviewed this and put your initials on it, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Chat. Y'all thirsty for Officer Chad. I get it. He's a dog handler. The poor man is like, I never want to be on TV talking about my job ever.
If I
Also,
can get input, please.
I'm trying not to be amused because again, if it was an attractive female witness, this is where my bias comes in. If it was an attractive female witness, I'd be like, y'all don't simp, just let her do her job. So I feel like I'm trying to keep the same energy with like, let him do his job, but also I'm more protective of women being objectified, I suppose. So I know y'all. I know.
Let me ask you this. When you got this call for service, were you currently on another call for service, or are you just out on patrol?
No, sir. I was just
So
out on
I'm
patrol.
trying. We can just keep it to simp and then let them do their job. Ashley, I get it, but when it was Dr. Curry, I was
Travis,
like,
what did
y'all,
you
she's
do?
a professional woman, let her do her job. So
Did you activate your lights
I
and
activated
sirens?
lights and sirens and responded to the incident location.
I'm trying
And
to
once
keep
you
the
do
same
that, do
energy.
you make all haste to get to that incident location as fast, but it also as reasonably safe as you can?
Yes, sir.
Is that standard operating procedure?
But
Yes,
also,
sir.
I get it. The lights are off.
The first 10 minutes, sorry.
Were you not?
The first 10 minutes of this body cam are essentially you
Were you not
driving
lights
to
and
the scene.
sirens?
Is that correct, roughly?
Yes, sir.
Were you not lights and
I'm gonna
sirens
fast forward to
on a double homicide in an
Closer in
area where
time
that
than
doesn't
you
happen a
arrived.
lot? So thank you, Chad. I agree. Like we stand totally fine, but also I get it. I always try to make sure we keep the same
Heard
energy.
proceed to the route. What was that?
I had a GPS activated on my phone.
Just like most people use, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Take a slight left turn.
So I try. Y'all, I'm not telling you not to simp. I'm just telling you not to cross the line of letting a professional do their job. That's all. So I'm trying. I'm trying. I get it. So we'll let Chad do his job
Are
and
these
just
the kennels that you saw when you arrived at the property?
say
Yes,
you
sir.
stand if you stand.
And to
it's
the
fine.
right is sort of the shed or the hangar, is that correct?
That's correct.
I try to keep that as minimal too because I don't want them to be uncomfortable. Siri is a witness, yes. Siri wants to have their moment. Yes, I think Damn It Dick is going to replace
Let me ask you this.
Elaine.
You're obviously serving as a road patrol officer, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Oh, his name is really
What is your
Chad.
job as a road patrol officer, as a first responder, when you come upon a scene like this? What is your particular role as you arrive at something like this?
We go on scene, we secure the scene, meaning make sure there's no active threat for other arriving first responders. We'll preserve the scene to the best of our ability and then turn the scene over to
Secure,
arriving detectives.
Preserve.
When you arrive at a scene
turnover.
like this, are you constantly not only paying attention for any threat or anything like that, but also making sure that you don't disturb or
Everybody's been standing.
any sort of evidence that may be at the scene?
It's wild.
Yes, sir.
Is that part of your general training and standard operating procedure?
It is.
You also have to couple that, though, with the duties of a first responder, which is to get to that scene, to
Well, that's
secure it, make
leading.
sure there's no active threats, and get it under control.
I mean,
Is
that's
that
just
correct?
leading all
That's
day
correct.
long.
So
The
the duties
defense
of a
is letting
first
them go, but
responder
it's
have
just
both
leading.
of those sort of balancing together, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Or are you constantly always looking around for evidence, not only to
That's all
identify,
leading.
but also to assure that you don't disturb anything? Is that?
Technically, it's foundational.
Thank you, Your Honor. What is your
Technically, it's
general
foundational.
training as a road officer as it relates to
Technically, it's
coming
foundational.
upon a scene and looking for evidence?
Our number one duty would be safety. Number two, we're looking for evidence so as not to disturb it.
Y'all, I guarantee you, Officer Chad does not have a public Insta. He's a police officer.
Right there to the right, what is that?
He's backed
To the
off
right
the
of the
leading a
screen.
little bit.
It'd
It
be
was
Miss
foundational.
Murdaugh's body.
But yeah, it was foundational.
Murdaugh. 400 Brandstetter, Murdaugh.
Who are those individuals right there?
Sergeant Greene and Mr. Murdaugh.
If nobody objects, it stands.
What did the defendant say to you right there?
He said, "How are you doing?"
Did you know him?
No, sir.
How you doing? That's what he said?
Yes, sir.
This is who got the how you doing.
What's her birthday?
I'm okay.
9/15/68.
Oh, he said, I'm okay.
And what's your son's first name? You said Paul?
Paul Terry Murdaugh.
And what's his birthday?
4. What are they covering them up?
I got some interest down here, if I have somebody come to grab it.
Tell them they don't have to do that.
It's interesting because in court,
Hey,
this part of the
He's
video.
asked that if we don't have to disturb anything, not to. We've got a sled on the way.
This part of the video has
Yep.
rendered
What were
an
you
emotional
asking,
reaction
Fire and
from
Rescue to do at
Murdaugh
that point?
each time. This part of the video, I don't
Just
know
to
what
try to
else is being
preserve it the
shown.
best they could. If they
You're
didn't
asking them-
I don't
what
know
were
if
you
Paul's body is
specifically
right
asking
there.
them not to do.
cover the bodies if they didn't have to.
And what was their response, though?
I couldn't make it out. I believe he said we're covering them for family responding. I couldn't make it out.
He's asked that if we don't have to disturb anything, not to. We've got a sled on the way.
So we're just gonna cover them up since the family was here,
Yep.
and that's it.
Do you recall now?
Again, it sounds like he says we're going to cover them up because of the family being here.
Okay. Does the family being here?
That's what it sounds like.
All right.
They're not treating him like a suspect.
We'll land this way here. So it's just Sergeant has.
Yes, I agree.
I told everybody else to cancel, so we don't really have to come down here.
Thank you.
And I don't know if this is the
Hey.
canine dog barking.
Cody, I need a piece of that tape.
If this
Whenever
is
you
the
get
dogs
done.
at the property barking, we don't know.
What did you just ask Cody for?
A piece of tape, piece of crime scene tape.
All right, and who was Cody?
Deputy Pruitt, he's the one that you see there with the yellow crime scene tape.
And why did you ask Deputy Pruitt for some crime scene tape?
I had observed a shell casing on the ground. I wanted to mark it so that it didn't become disturbed.
Your general duties as an officer, you observed something and you asked for some tape to mark it, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And that's what you were previously describing your role is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. If y'all don't mind, just mark them.
So he doesn't have
Do I?
crime scene flags.
Okay.
So they're just trying to preserve
I
the
got a
best they
casing
can.
right here, so watch your step.
He probably would have left the
That casing that you
vehicle,
saw, did you recognize what kind of ammunition it
but I
was?
don't, the
Yes,
vehicle
sir.
windows would be
What kind of
open.
ammunition was it?
I would
300
think.
blackout casing.
And how could you tell it was a 300 blackout casing?
Just my own personal experience. I own a 300 blackout, and I recognized it.
You recognize the case from your own experience?
Yes,
That's
sir.
what I shoot. He's like, I know it's a 300 blackout. I shoot a 300 blackout.
It's 300 blackout.
So this is the body worn camera from Officer Chad walking around the crime scene. Oh no, I've granted this motion. I think we're gonna say damn it dick a lot here. Oh, I was simping
Did
for
you
Dr.
observe any
Curry.
dogs in the kennels?
I did.
Do you remember
I
how many or
absolutely
where they
was.
were?
I do not remember.
I'm
more than
here
one
for
dog there?
simping.
I don't remember.
I'm here for simping if we don't turn it into objectifying. That's all. I think that's fair. I think we can stand, we can simp, we can love people that are competent and cute, but there's that's
They
just
they
where I
said they
cut
had
it.
several casings by her body, but
Preserve
this one
that.
will be a little bit harder to find later, so I want to mark it real fast.
It's so loud.
When you marked that casing, were you careful not to disturb its
Because
location
it-
where you found it?
Yes, sir. I placed the tape beside it and then placed a rock on top so that it wouldn't blow away.
This is a pretty graphic crime
Why are there
scene.
so many shell casings and only one?
This is graphic crime scene video. No doggo witness. Y'all, I'm sorry, that is so loud. I don't know what that squeaking is. I don't know if that's a dog whine.
Sorry to do that to everyone. Well, what was that loud noise?
It's just my windshield wipers.
And why was it making that noise?
They had removed all the moisture, I guess.
Fuck those windshield wipers, man. Those are painful.
I don't see anybody.
My ears are over this body cam. That sounds like a big truck.
Can I see a couple more pieces? I found some more in there.
Those were windshield wipers.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out why there's 300 blackout. I'm trying to figure out why there's so many shell casings, but only one gunshot went to the back of each head. Not my job to figure that out. I'm just curious. I only saw one more casing, but just in case I see more. Daniel put his car in there.
So they're talking about the casings and seeing the casings at the crime scene.
So, no. This is, I'll tell you about this in a minute. There's one there. There's blood over here.
We don't know where they're walking because they haven't established it. The jury is seeing it. And you can see the audience wants to see it too. I don't know why. It's going to be awful video. By all accounts, this is a very graphic and gruesome crime scene.
You looking at shell casings? 300 blackout. Sheriff?
He would have looked at the
Cases
casings
that you were
but not-
marking right there, did you at all disturb the location where you saw them?
He would have looked at
No,
them
sir.
but not touched them.
Is it your job to be doing a crime scene collection for this case, or are you just doing that to assist those who will do that will arrive at a
He's
later
just
time?
preserving it.
No, sir, I don't collect anything. I'm just marking it so that they're not disturbed.
So nobody kicks it.
Probably.
Oh, the audience in court wants to see all of this video. They're all just... This
Yeah,
video...
those would be easy to find. I was just marking a couple that were in the gravel. It might be harder to see at some point.
Smart.
Y'all familiar with this family?
I wasn't until you told me.
I wasn't till the boat case.
I'll fill you in later.
Y'all familiar with this family? I wasn't till the boat case. So he didn't know who the Murdaughs were either. That's a very
I don't.
interesting statement.
I don't think there's going to be anything from me and anybody to do here.
What did you just say right there?
I don't think there's going to be anything for me and Evo to do here.
All right, what did you mean by that?
Evo the dog.
There was no article search that needed to be conducted right then and there. Putting Evo on the ground could have caused more of a disturbance than just leaving him up.
Because that's a...
You said for Evo to do?
Yeah, for me and Evo. Please watch your...
Hey, watch this step.
And you hear him saying, watch your step.
Huh?
Watch your feet. It's an active crime scene. I wonder what the cross will be like on this, because he's actually trying to keep people from watching their step. You heard him under his breath say, watch your step, Jesus Christ. Because, yeah, it is a double homicide scene. So, yeah. So, Jen, I'm absolutely with you. Jen says, morbid curiosity ends real quick after you've seen a gruesome crime scene. I'm a former EMT. I have zero desire to see anything ever again. Same. When you can viscerally understand what this looks like, what this sounds like, what this smells like, what this feels like, I want no part of it. I don't have to see it. I'm not gonna. I've seen enough.
It's gonna be
I have seen enough in my
retaliation.
life. I don't need it at all.
He did have a firearm, I told that.
He was asking about the Murdaughs and the boat case, and he said, I'll fill you in later. I will tell you, I will spill the tea later. They're not going to do that now. It's not appropriate. And they're on body cam. But it's also not appropriate. It's like, let me tell you who these folks are. Let me tell you about the boat crash. Let me tell you all the tea. This is going to be gossipy. All right, I don't know what they're asking, so I'm going to go to a few questions if I can. You can't remember questions you can't understand. That's a very fair point. Do attorneys ever play to Corporal?
now
I'll
show
get
you-
that later, because that's a longer answer.
A portion
Don't
of what's
apologize,
been
EDB. We should
previously
treat the
admitted
men
to
the
evidence
same.
as
Yes,
Exhibit 1.
they get uncomfortable too. Yes. Even some on LawTube, they don't say it, but you can tell. Oh, you can tell when Peter Tragos gets the super chats that make him uncomfortable based on his appearance. You can tell. I can tell. It happens to Rob too. You can see it. So, let's see. I'm not sure what canines y'all have seen, but I've seen a lot of body cam footage where the canines have been barking like this. It just depends, but this canine is up, and they're at kennels, and we can't see. So I'm not going to guess on which dog
For the record,
it is, because we...
I'm starting at 4227.
we can't see if it's the kennel dogs or the canine dog. Oh, Brianna, officers are so gossipy. They know all
Who's that to the right of the
tea on
screen right there?
everybody and their mama.
That would be me.
All right, and what are you about to do?
Step inside and assist CID with lifting that sheet.
All right, and were you asked to do that?
Yes, sir.
And who asked you to do that?
Captain Chapman.
All right, and where's Captain Chapman in this image?
In the middle
And is he a senior officer to you?
at that time.
Okay.
I think
And I
it's-
noticed before you moved, what did you do?
Turned my light on
And why did you turn on your light?
He was turning on
so that I
his light this
could
way.
plainly see what was underneath me, where I was going.
Did you disturb any evidence or anything as you started to go into the feed room?
No, sir.
Were you careful to avoid doing that?
Yes, sir.
Is
Did
it a
you
feed
kick any
room?
shell casings or waddings or anything like that when you went into the feed room?
No, sir.
Did you step on any bloody footprints when you went into the feed room?
No, sir.
If you had seen something like that before you stepped in there, what would you have done?
I would have stopped and notified the detective.
Kind of leading. But it's also foundational. I love that the DA,
Fire rescue might have some more.
the Attorney General was like, did you flash your, that's exactly how they would have called their light. Husband and law enforcement can confirm gossip. They know everything. They know everything. And we want to know everything. And we do know everything. Especially if you're an officer that grew up in that town.
Do you recall what, if anything, was laying on Paul's
You
rear
know the
end?
tea on everybody.
His cell phone, or a cell phone.
Is that it in this image right here?
Yes, sir.
Paul's cell phone's going to come up more later. So they're just going through this video. Yeah, this is a long day for the jurors already.
I haven't asked the dad about the phone, but dad did say he came over and checked their pulses. Beyond that, I don't know what else he did.
The prosecutor's not wearing a mic, just the mic's in the courtroom.
He did have a shotgun with him. I have secured that.
It's my understanding that most of the exhibits will not be on video or will not be shown on the screen. The media will have a chance to review them after court and can photograph ones that are not sealed and then distribute those to the public. So we might see some of them, but we're not going to get them up on the screen like we did in Deputy Heard. That's my understanding. Is it typical not being able to see the video and photo evidence? In a criminal case, yes, it is typical. Do the attorneys in these high-profile
Did
cases...
you kind of jump out of the feed room just then?
Yes, sir.
Did you turn on your light before
They
you did so?
should.
I believe so.
They should. I don't know if they do, but they should.
Watch it again.
Thank you for the mod love.
Did you jump out when you left the feed room?
Yes, sir.
And why'd you jump out like that?
Try not to disturb the body. It was easier to leap out than to try to step.
Did you enter the feed room at any point after that, to your recollection?
Not to my recollection.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as defense exhibit number 1 and see
I'm
if you
just taking a
recognize
note.
this particular image.
Yes, sir.
I'll switch inputs, please.
If I was a juror right about now, I would have wanted the first thing they started with to be an overview of the property, to say, this is where the kennels are, this is where the feed room is. Watching body cam footage of people walking through things when you have no orientation for where those things are is
Does that
so
appear
fucking
to-
difficult for me.
Is that how you found
And I
Paul when
can't
you arrived
imagine
at
I'm
the
the only
scene?
one. I would
Yes, sir.
want, this is
Were
the
his
layout
hands
of the
underneath
property.
him in that fashion when you arrived at the scene?
Yes, sir.
This is the layout of the property. And so that you have some orientation in your brain for what you're seeing as they're walking around. I would have wanted them to do that first. I saw a comment, it's interesting that he's in a suit. Most officers come to court to testify in a suit, not their uniform, unless they are on duty the day they're coming in to testify. So if they're off duty, they come in in a suit.
State's Exhibit 7, I believe without objection. Without offered evidence.
Objection.
I'll show you what's been marked as Exhibit 7 and see if you recognize that image.
Yes, sir.
And what is that?
It's a still image of Video of my body-worn camera.
Is that a still image of when the defendant said, "How you doing?" when you walked up?
Yes, sir.
I had no idea there was a name, but I have no spatial imagination either. I'm also very bad at Tetris. So it would be hard. I can't. We can get an overview, but the thing is, we can Google it, and there are some images of this house. The house is up for sale. Gosh, I'm just going to adapt somebody else's accent while I'm talking. Sale. The house is up for sale, so there might be some overheads, but the jury doesn't have that. So if the jury doesn't have that, no further questions. We're getting into cross.
Cross-examination.
Please report, Your Honor.
So,
when you got to the scene,
no notes.
who was your supervisor?
Can you repeat that question? I couldn't hear you.
Because he's walking.
I'm sorry.
So Jenny, I know we can go look, but the jury doesn't.
That's okay. I'll speak a
The
little
jury
bit
doesn't
louder.
have orientation for it, which is
When you got to the scene, who was your supervisor?
Sergeant Greene.
I know I do, but the jury
And
doesn't.
I believe Sergeant Greene was instructing you all to put some yellow tape up. You did some of that?
No, sir.
You didn't do any of that?
Deputy
Okay.
Pruitt, yes, but I didn't know.
What was Sergeant Greene? What was his instructions to you? What were you there to do? Number one, let me withdraw that question. Were you there?
Well done with the withdrawal,
Apprehend
not
somebody?
strike. I appreciate that.
Not at the time, no, sir. I was just there to assist where needed.
Assist doing what?
Good attention to detail.
Whatever was needed of me.
Look at how empty this courtroom is.
Were you all attempting to determine what happened?
We there as initial responders were there to secure the scene.
Okay.
Not
Secure the
investigate.
scene. And secure the scene for further processing by SLED?
By our investigators, I learned later on that SLED was responding as well.
So let me, by way of example, you went down to where Paul's body was. It was covered with a sheet. You see that on the video, correct?
Not when I initially responded, but yes, sir.
No, but the video we just saw.
Yes, sir.
And why were you all, what was there a purpose of going down there and pulling the sheet back?
Question.
I believe they were looking for another weapon.
What kind of weapon?
I believe they were looking for a 300 blackout.
But, I mean, we saw in the picture, if you look at Paul's body, there's no 300 blackout laying next to him.
But there's
Correct?
No, sir.
I'm correct.
Yes, you are correct. No, there was no 300 blackout lane beside
ask a
him.
clearer
so
question, you'll get a clearer
You
answer.
say you're down there looking for another weapon. Where were you looking for another weapon?
I wasn't, sir. I was assisting lifting the sheet for detectives.
And you concede you stepped into the feed room.
Yes, sir.
And based on the way Paul was laying, and of course you did have a flashlight and you were looking, trying not to step on anything. Did you have anything to insulate your feet? And in some jurisdictions, they have little baggy things to put over their feet to make sure they don't contaminate the scene. Did you have those on?
No, sir.
How many questions was that?
And
One
did
at a
you,
time.
When you
Annoys
stepped
me.
in, you got a flashlight. What you were looking at with the visible eye, you're determining you weren't disturbing the scene, correct?
That's correct.
You made an effort not to.
Yes, sir.
You don't know whether you did or you didn't,
To my knowledge, I did not.
but you can't say that you didn't. To your knowledge.
Can you repeat that?
To your knowledge, you didn't.
To my knowledge, I did not disturb anything.
Okay. But you would concede there's microscopic evidence sometimes of crime scenes, correct?
Yes, sir. That's possible.
And you didn't have a microscope.
No, sir.
But
That's
like
possible.
the SLED crime team would look very closely, would they not? They would not, I mean, as far as I could tell, you were looking basically 3 or 4 feet away from the floor, right?
Yes, sir.
He didn't get down on his
So what you
hands and
can see with the
knees.
naked eye at night with a flashlight from 3 or 4 feet is what you base your opinion you didn't disturb anything.
That's correct.
Now, and you don't know why, they were looking for another weapon, but you don't know what other weapon, you don't know where that weapon might have been, and again, multiple deputies had seen Paul's body before.
These are two,
He was
it's
covered
so
with a sheet, right?
compound.
Myself,
What?
Sergeant Greene did.
Okay. For y'all, in your presence, any of the other officers with you there that night, did any of them discuss this as a possible murder-suicide?
It's possible. It's not to my recollection.
Now, when you were going out,
It has to be considered.
Mark a shell casing. Was that in the grass or on the dirt road?
I believe the first one was in gravel.
In the gravel, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Okay, but you found others, right?
Yes, sir.
And to do that, you had to walk around in the grass?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And again, you've got a flashlight, you're looking, and you don't know what was in the grass that you may have disturbed around those shell casings.
Do you know anything
No,
that
sir.
ever possibly
You
could have
don't
been
know.
in grass ever?
No, sir.
You may have disturbed something.
Anything's
possible.
possible.
And I guess what I'm trying to ask is, why then were you trying to look for shell casings? Why couldn't you wait till the next morning?
He saw them.
Why was this urgency? I mean, was somebody getting away, or, I mean, I don't quite understand
Compound.
Can't answer that. I don't know. I didn't know if somebody was getting away or not.
That's
Did somebody
compound.
instruct you to go find shell casings?
No, sir.
You just did it on your own initiative?
Yes, sir.
And you concede that you may have disturbed or destroyed evidence in that process?
Microscopic or something I didn't see.
Well, microscopic, something down in the grass. I mean, you're walking on grass,
What do you think's in the grass, Dick?
not a,
Yes,
not
sir.
a smooth surface.
You looking
like
for a snake in the
in
wood pile? I don't
shed,
understand.
In the feed room, but it's grass at night, correct?
Yes, sir.
And I guess what I'm trying to wonder is,
It's not
what
like he's gonna
y'all
step
doing?
on the
Were you
gun.
trying to solve a crime? Were you
No.
trying to just index everything was there?
Compound.
And when did you find out SLED was coming?
No, what
So
were
we're trying
y'all
to mark
doing was your
everything
first
there. As you can
question.
tell, there were multiple units going back and forth, fire rescue as well as sheriff's office. We try to mark it so that it brings awareness to them and it doesn't become disturbed.
I'm sorry, I can't understand you. I can't hear you.
There were multiple units on scene,
Right.
sheriff's office as well as fire rescue.
Right.
The reason that I saw urgency to mark those shell casings is so that it brings awareness to those of us that were walking around and they don't become disturbed.
Well,
I
that
need a
brings
mu-
up
I
the
need a
question,
muffin,
should you have
too.
been walking around? What, if you got two dead people, whoever the perpetrator was, at that point, y'all hadn't identified, had you?
No, sir.
No.
Okay, so the perpetrator may be in the woods across the street, as far as you know at that point, right?
Could have been anywhere.
Right. So you're not trying to solve a crime, you're processing a scene?
Securing the
I'm
scene.
not processing anything.
Securing the scene. And then preserving the scene. Securing, preserving.
You don't know what you're
Investigation
doing.
comes after.
I just told you what I was doing, sir.
You're marking pieces of evidence.
Yes, sir.
And
You
the
don't know what you-
urgency to do that was so that no one else would walk over them
Yes, sir.
while you're walking around them.
Around. Yes, sir.
Well, you don't know whether you actually stepped on one or not, do you?
I was very careful not to.
Okay.
This isn't
Now,
going
let
to
me
get
also
very
ask
far.
you this, the pattern of the first shell casing was how far away from the feed room?
I can't
That you
say.
found?
The first shell casing I found?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
10 feet, 20 feet, more than me, further than,
Probably about the same distance from me to you.
okay. From the feed room door?
Yes, sir.
Now, I understand, and you fired, you got a blackout, right?
Yes, sir.
And when you fire that, does it eject to the right or the left?
To the right. Mine does.
Okay. So if the feed room is where I am, that shell casing ejected to the right and forward, right and back? What do you know?
Are you asking where the shell casing was in relation to the door? It would have been forward and right of the door.
Forward and right of the door.
That's what he said.
And there was the pattern of casings leading, do they all lead to her body?
I can't remember.
Did you sketch where you found them?
No, sir. I did not do a crime scene sketch.
Not his
Have
job.
you ever done a crime scene sketch?
No, sir.
No, he's the canine handler. I don't know why I'm
Tell
so
me your
annoyed.
training in crime scene processing.
It's very basic, limited what you would get at the Criminal Justice Academy.
Don't step
Very
on
basic.
things.
Yes, sir.
So you're not a crime scene processor.
No.
again, and I'm not asking this question repetitively, I'm just trying to
Yes, you are.
puzzle it out. What?
What were you doing? He's the dog
You don't know
handler.
what your role was there.
What?
I was a first responder.
Well, they were dead, Paul and Maggie, right? You couldn't render them any aid.
Your Honor, I would object. No question in that statement.
Is there a question?
Could you have rendered them aid? Were they in a physical condition where your assistance would have helped?
No, sir.
They were dead, correct?
Are you asking? Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay, let me show you a couple of these clips and ask about them here, and I've got times. We don't have to go through the... I'm going to be brief. Okay, would you go to 1040? How does that mean?
It's so interesting that he's like, well, you're not processing the crime scene. He never said that he was. It's just, it's round and round and round and round. His job was to secure the scene, meaning making sure nobody's going to jump out and shoot the first responders or Alec Murdaugh or anybody else. And then second, preserve the evidence. Make sure the other responders that show up don't step over or kick the bullet casings. He was doing his job.
Okay, this is you walking, and these are the dog pens over here to the left, correct?
Yes, sir.
And right in front of that, one of the dog pens, is a hose that is neatly coiled around a hose, something holding the hose, right?
That's what it looks like.
Okay, go ahead. How about go to 11:12?
How you doing? What's up?
Okay, now, Mr. Waters asked you about this just a moment ago when he said, how you doing when somebody walked up. You would concede to me that but for that one quip, he appears to be distraught over the death of his wife and son?
He appeared visibly upset.
Yes, okay, other than this, how you doing sort of thing, right?
Correct.
Okay, also, we see him in a T-shirt and a pair of shorts, correct?
Yes, sir.
I've looked at your report, I looked at everybody that encountered him that night. No report indicates any blood visible on him. You would agree with that?
Which is odd.
I didn't observe any.
What?
I did not observe any.
Okay. It's a white shirt.
Yes, sir.
I think
If
that
you
doesn't
noted
cut.
blood on him,
I
you
think
would
that
have
cuts
made it-
both
you would
ways.
have Put that in your notes or reported that to somebody, right?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. How about when you see 1845?
I'm trying to not kill your ears.
That's you apparently determining the shell casing you found is a 300 blackout, correct?
The one that I marked, yes, sir.
He's saying that it
The
is.
one that was in the gravel.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
That's all the video I have. Just a couple final questions. Since I have no further questions.
Very briefly, Your Honor.
Redirect from the prosecution.
Are you a first responder?
Yes, sir.
Your first job is safety, correct?
Yes, sir.
Second job is to protect the scene, is that correct?
Objection leading.
Thank you. Tell me what your jobs as a first responder are again.
Tell me what your second job is.
Yes, sir. We secure the scene, make sure there's no current threat for additional first responders.
I
We
don't
then
think they need
secure
to
the
do
scene,
this. I think it
make
was
sure that
clear.
nobody comes in that's not supposed to, so that we preserve
I don't
any
think this
evidence
is a fight
that's
they
there.
need to fight, truly.
As part of your training to avoid disturbing the scene as best you can.
Yes, sir.
Still paying attention to your primary role.
Yes, sir.
As part of your training and your experience and what you try to do is if you do see evidence...
Your Honor, leading.
I'll rephrase you. If you are on scene and you do see evidence while you were there, what is your standard operating procedure in that event?
I would mark it
And why do you do that?
just to bring awareness to it so that it's not disturbed.
Is your job to be a crime scene investigator?
No, sir.
No.
You're just marking that? I'll rephrase.
Rephrase that.
You were asked earlier about apprehending any suspects. Was Mr. Murdaugh ever in custody?
No, sir, not to my recollection.
To your observation, was he allowed to move freely?
Yes, sir.
Was he allowed to interact with people who came to talk to him?
Yes, sir.
Was he ever placed in the back of a police car?
Not that I'm aware of.
Was he
Never put in
kicking gun
handcuffs?
casings?
No, sir.
Was he being treated as a suspect when you were there?
Not that I'm aware of.
There's the question. Y'all, I don't know why I got yeeted. Sorry. Let me
Lights
pull this
back
back
up.
up. Everything got yeeted. Sorry, y'all.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll break for lunch. We will resume at 2:15. Please do not discuss the case. In recess till 2:15.
And the court's in recess until 2:15 Eastern Time, which means we will resume here just a little bit before then. Sorry I got yeeted. I don't know why I got yeeted, but that is something I will be looking into over the break. So we will be resuming at 1 o'clock Central Time. It is just about lunchtime. So I break to figure out what is going on tech-wise, which is, it seems to be an issue with my streaming software. Sorry about that. So it's happening on all channels. Nick got yeeted too. That has to be a StreamYard issue. Nick did too. I think that, no, so it didn't, the court feed never went down. So if there is an issue, it is with Nick and I use the same streaming software. It is the same streaming software. So it wasn't Long Crime. Their software didn't go down. I think that was a streaming software issue that we will be working on over the break. This is not a court feed issue. This is a streaming software issue. So don't make it anything bigger than it is. It's not. It is. We had some blips on the streaming software. The court feeds have been smooth. So that's not the problem. We didn't miss anything. I'm going to reset and try it. So that was a streaming software issue that we are going to be working on immediately. Thank you, Tech Valor. Let them know how thrilled we are with getting yeeted from our own streams. Because normally if I go down, this is just tech chat. Normally if I go down, it is me on my end and it doesn't kick everything out. The software went down and kicked everything out, kicked me out, kicked my producer out, kicked the feed out. So that's different. Normally, if it's just on my end, my internet or something, then if it's my internet, then I get kicked out, but nothing else gets kicked out. So let's go to a quick summary. Then we're going to get to some questions and then we're going to get some lunch. Wait, I need to text Dr. B. I need to text Dr. B and let him know it's lunch break. Lunch break soon. He's going to help me make some lunch because I wanted some nuggies today. Can we nuggie? There's these really good gluten-free chicken nuggets from Trader Joe's. And that's exactly what I want for lunch. So that's what I'm going to be doing. All right, summary. Y'all don't need to hear what I'm having for lunch. We got into the first two first responder witnesses this morning and their body-worn footage. So what this crime scene looked like when officers arrived, what they did to preserve the crime scene. We can see that the defense, by their questioning, is going with, this wasn't a well-preserved crime scene. People were just tromping all over evidence. And the officer saying, no, that's not in fact what happened here. But yes, there are going to be questions about whether tire tracks were preserved, whether another car could have gone in and out. This is the defense doing their job, though sometimes annoying, to establish doubt. Hey, we don't even know if there could have been the murderer could have driven off in the time from the, after the shooting happened, and we don't have those tire marks. What's a fair argument though is if Alec Murdaugh's alibi is in fact not a manufactured alibi, but an actual alibi, then he would have destroyed that evidence too. Because his story is that he went to go see his mom because his dad had gone to the hospital. When he went to go see his mom, somewhere in there, the murders must have happened. He came home, drove into the property, drove up to the kennels, or went to the house, looked for his wife and son, didn't see them, called them, didn't see them, went up to the kennels, went back down to, saw them. I don't know when the 911 call happened in this timeline, saw them, went back down to the house, got a shotgun, went back up to the kennels. Well, he was driving all over this scene too, so that already would have been a problem. And then they call, first responders in somewhere in that. They call first responder in, and it would have been them driving up too over whatever tire tracks. So it's not just that the police destroyed whatever tire tracks. He would have driven over them as well. So that's part of the consideration here, which is very interesting. So who says the murderer wasn't on foot? That's possible, but they didn't release the canines to go look for somebody. This is a 1,700 acre property. So it would have been interesting to see, but that's true. The defense hasn't argued it yet. And the way the defense is keying on the tire tracks is why I said that, and why I think that. So I don't know that 911 wasn't called immediately. I don't know at what point 911 was called. We don't have that evidence yet in front of the jury in that timeline. So we don't know. Do you know if the family of the girl who died in the boat accident was investigated? I know they looked at connections to the boat accident. I don't know if they looked at Mallory Beach's family, so we will do that. Did they establish a time of death for the bodies? The coroner did, but we are not there yet, and the jury does not have that information yet. So when we hear coroner testimony, we will hear quite a lot of that. We're just not there yet. Do you think this defense attorney is good? I do. There's times he annoys me, but he is a good attorney. So there is. So let's see. Paula said, who would kill mom and son? Well, the state thinks it was Alec Murdaugh. So who else would it be? We don't know. Were there security cameras? We haven't heard a thing about security cameras, so I'm assuming that there aren't, because we haven't heard a thing about it. And if there had been security cameras, we would have heard about it in the Gloria Satterfield case. Gloria Satterfield was their longtime kind of property manager who helped raise the kids and took care of the house and things like that. She fell on the stairs at Moselle, and they said she tripped over a dog on the stairs, but she fell on the stairs at Moselle and died. If there had been camera footage at the house, we would have heard about it in connection with that case. Alec Murdaugh was then sued and then finagled all the funds from the Satterfield surviving sons. She's been exhumed. That investigation has been reopened. It was initially ruled an accidental death. Dick, are you arguing that the cops cannot enter a scene without first doing a microscopic analysis of the entire scene? Yes. His job is not to be his job's not really to be reasonable in that way. His job's to introduce doubt. Doubt. Jeanette said most dyslexic need a layout because our minds work in 3 dimensions. I'm going to have to rewatch with a layout in front of me later. I didn't know that about myself. I can't do anything without seeing it. I need to see it too. So that doesn't surprise me. I always learn more about myself by chatting with y'all about me and my life experiences and y'all's life experiences, because chat is bae and I always learn so much from you. So thank you. This reminds me of, did I read it right? Yes. Do we know when it's the defense, the angle of the defense attorney is always going to be doubt. Could you have destroyed something? Could the evidence of the real murderer be destroyed by the officers? It's always going to be introducing doubt. That is always the goal of the defense. So when you keep that in mind, even when it feels annoying, their job and their goal and their role is to introduce doubt into this case. Sorry, I've got to turn off this feed because it's gone to commentary, and it is, hold on, the court feeds are now distracting me and I have to change them around as we finish did I finish my summary? I think I finished my summary and switched to questions. So that's a summary from the morning. The jury saw the body cam video. We did not. Some in the audience did, even though the court was covering it up. And we're going to get to just a few questions before we break for lunch, and then I will be back. Miguelina, can we change the time of the stream to make sure that we are resuming at, let's do 1:05 p.m. Central, and then make that public, 1:05 Central, and so people can hop to that stream and have that after we get there. Yeah, we're almost at 681 or 682. We binged yesterday. We're almost going to bing again. So thank you, Miguelina. Let's just make that link live so we can link this stream to it so people can go over there and chat when we are done. Appreciate it. Let us fact around and find out. We're just going to do a few questions. Thank you, chat. Chat is Bay. We're going to get to a few questions, and then I'll have some time to cover some of these questions at the top of the next feed after the lunch break. What about the jury email this morning? Thoughts? I don't have thoughts yet. I need to know more. I'm curious. I have questions. Those are my thoughts. I have questions. I need to know more. Like, I have massive, massive questions. Lisa said, all I hear in my head is, so you're telling me that the laws of physics cease to exist in your kitchen. I cannot help with the My Cousin Vinny comparisons. And there will probably be lots of them through this trial. But again, the role of the defense attorney is to introduce doubt, so that the jury can be like, yeah, but if they rushed to judgment and if they thought Alec Murdaugh did it, they weren't even looking for a third person. They weren't looking for footprints of somebody else. They weren't looking for tire tracks of somebody else. So that. I know it's not his job, but doesn't that contaminate the scene? Aren't there standards to follow? These officers were following the standards where they first secure the scene. Well, first they have to assess what's going on. It might not even be a crime scene. When two people are shot, probably a crime scene. But first they have to assess the scene and secure the scene and make sure that no one's in threat. You can't bring first responders in if there is still an active threat of danger. And truly, you don't want the person who's just lost their wife and son, if he is not a suspect yet, to also be taken out. If this family is under attack, you don't know the situation, so you have to go with all possibilities and secure the scene. Then you try to preserve the scene the best you can while figuring out what's going on. And so that is fair that that's how they were doing it, but they were adhering to procedure. Why are there so many people walking around? Because they were securing the scene. And it doesn't seem like there's a ton of people walking around from what I'm seeing. If you get frustrated with me, Dick, don't take it out on Alex Murdaugh. I think he meant if you get frustrated with me making things confusing, asking weird questions, blame me personally, but accept the case is muddy. That's what he said in opening. He knew that his style was going to annoy the jury. The thing that's hard for me is that his questions aren't clean. I don't like that. You lose the gotcha moment of a cross-examination when your questions aren't clean. His question is this and this and this and this and that and then this. And then the answer is only to the end part, but he might argue, well, they agreed to all of this. That's why the compound questions are so frustrating. The prosecution's not objecting to them. Sometimes the witness is like, I'm sorry, which question are you asking me? And witnesses can do that. I'm sorry, which of those questions would you like me to answer? I'm not sure. You asked me this and this and this, but it's hard to do when you've been on the stand for hours. This is what Dick meant when he promised to annoy. Yes, I think so. Is Harpootlian the only attorney available on either side of the fence in South Carolina? Seems to be. I smell what Dick is stepping in. The cops were being nosy and playing detective, but should have stepped all the way back and waited for SLED to arrive. It seems to be what he's implying. I don't know if these officers knew that SLED was going to be called. So, I feel like Dick's cross wasn't good for the defendant. I don't know. We're still really, really early for that. Are we all in the mouth of madness? I have no idea what that is referring to. Let's see. Hi from South Africa, watching your streams while I work has helped my ADHD so much. Thank you. I love you. I'm Vincent Van Gogh. The Tic Tac freak out yesterday had me falling off my chair. I was so appalled. Question, when they said he had no blood on his clothes, isn't it possible he changed? It is possible that he changed. It's just odd to me in the series of events, because if we believe that he changed after the 911 call, when he said when the 911 caller said, don't touch them, and he said, I already have. after he calls 911, if he calls 911 when he's first been up there, and then he goes back to get a shotgun, would you change then? Is that when you're getting a shotgun to try to defend yourself and figure out what's going on with your wife and son and waiting for law enforcement to arrive? Is that when you change your clothes? Because that would be weird. And then do you not touch them? Or the prosecution is going to argue, how do you touch them and have no interaction with them at all? So that is also an issue. Miguelina, let me check and answer that question for you in just a second, because we're going to break in a second. Now I want to know the dog in court story. So I had a judge that we were using a tracking dog that tracked people that were hiding. So not a cadaver dog, not a drug search dog, but a people search dog. They key off of stress hormones. That is part of how they find people when people are hiding under buildings or in houses or whatever. And I don't know if this dog was dual purposed for anything else, but I remember specifically this was a dog that had searched a suspect, had gotten in a car chase and gotten out of the car and run into a neighborhood. And they were using the dog to search the neighborhood to find this person hiding under like a porch, I think is where they eventually were found. So the court didn't understand how a dog could possibly find a person hiding under a porch. And we weren't saying that was, the dog didn't identify that this is the person that ran from the car. The officers were like, well, I saw the person driving the car and I saw this person on the porch, same person. But the court was confused and thought that the dog was like identifying somehow the person. The dog just found the person. And the court wanted to see the Belgian Malinois, wanted the dog to come into court. When a dog is trained to pick up on human stress hormones and all the things you put off, bringing them into a criminal courtroom is not good. So the handler, the dog was on such high alert that the dog was like vibrating out of its fur. The handler was doing a very good job. The dog was not barking, but you could see that the dog was super agitated. And the court was like, oh, this dog seems so aggressive. Your Honor, it's a Belgian Malinois tracking dog. What the fuck did you expect? I think the judge wanted to bring in like cute Poochie Pooch and have a minute to be like, oh, aren't you a good boy? No, that good boy will rip your face off. This is not the dog. Your Honor, today is not the day, and this is not the one. What you don't do is bring a dog who's keyed to track humans based on stress into a courtroom that is full of nothing but stress. It's a terrible plan. And we tried to tell the judge again and again, and the handler was so pissed off, and the dog was so pissed off, and I was so pissed off, and the judge was like, this dog? Yes. Have you never seen you've been a judge for 175 fucking years. Have you never seen a working dog? This dog was ready to just. I did a lot of cases with dogs. We had a hostage situation where a dog ended up subduing the person who took a group of people hostage, but subduing by grabbing him in the back of the leg. Never, ever, 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 ever do I want a police dog point in my direction. Ever, 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 ever. Terrifying. Malinois are always, today is not the day, and I am not the one. It is literally their whole purpose in life, and you can see the glee. Today is not the day. Ha! Malinois are hilarious. Anyway, yeah. So the hamstring was not, oh no, do not run. The dog was fine. The dog was annoyed as fuck, but the dog was fine. So, anyway, yes. As a dog groomer, they are known as malligators. They bite. Yes. Dogs. Can I bite? Can I bite? Now can I bite? Can I bite? Can I chase? Can I bite? Can I chase? We're going to do a few more questions, and I've got some information I need to give to, we need to deal with tech issues like stat. So let me see. Let me answer this question for Miguelina so we can deal with this. And Miguelina, we had some issues this morning logging in. I was getting some StreamYard like weird 404 errors, so I think this is a larger issue on their side. Do attorneys ever play to cultural beliefs and biases of the jury? Yes. You will see this. We saw this in the Weinstein case with the way that they were doing closing arguments. Yes, they will. Look, the job of the lawyer is not to be, the job of the lawyer is to zealously advocate for their client. And if they can use things that would not seem socially appropriate, they will do it. Things that you would never expect someone to say, they will do it. That is literally their job in the courtroom. When they don't do it is if they think that it will turn off the jury. But if they see the jury leaning in, they will lean in to what a jury might believe. So yes, the Masterson case as well. Yes. The OJ case as well. Yes. That the things that happen in court and the things that are socially and societally acceptable and correct and compassionate and court are not the same. Not the same at all. So it's very interesting. But as jurors change, as society changes, that will change. Because if it doesn't work for them, they'll stop doing it. Lawyers will do what works. And if jurors are just like, oh, why would you do that? That's awful. Attorneys will stop doing it. But if it works, they will do it. So they will lean in. Question, do you think they'll play calls from jail between Buster and Dad? I don't think so, unless there is something on the calls that is highly, highly relevant. But I don't think so. It's not relevant evidence unless they talk about the crime scene or hiding evidence or something like that, which I don't believe exists. So generally, no. Generally, no. So the Tory Lanez defense attempted it. They did. They very much attempted to shame Megan Thee Stallion and be like, and bring up things that were completely irrelevant about her life. And it did not work. And those attorneys will learn. They'll be like, oh, that didn't work. We won't do it again. But yes, attorneys do that. So that is part of zealous advocacy. And attorneys have no chill. Attorneys have no chill. It's like, this is what if they're going to argue, that is what they are going to argue to make it work. Question, has the idea been floated? He could have hired a hitman or a hit person. He obviously knows how to find one. The absence of blood on his person is wild. If so, then he's the wrong person. He's on trial for the wrong thing. Because if you hire someone, there are proper charges for that, and these are not them. These are charges that he did it. So with that, you guys, we are going to try to figure out the technology. Ziminia, I probably put too many consonants in there. I apologize. I followed you since the JD trial. Love all your comments. Thank you. I appreciate that. So Samantha said in an early episode of the Murdaugh Murders podcast, Mandy had part of an interview where Dick said one of his trial strategies is to take up space in the courtroom and get all up in everyone else's space to assert himself. He's definitely doing that. He's right up on the witness box. He's right up in front of the jury. Like he's right. It's like the witness box, the court reporter, and Dick. He's just right up in there. But also, he's been a trial attorney for a long time. This works for him. So that's interesting. All right. With that, y'all, we are going to go take a lunch break. I will be back in like 45 minutes. The stream is populated. You can get over to that stream. So we will be back for the lunch break and repopulate our stream. And then we will talk about all the things. We will talk about all the things. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for being law nerds. I'm going to go eat and I will try to fix tech. All right. Bye.
You can find all the Law Nerd goodies at lawnerdshop.com. Connect with me on social media at the Emily D. Baker. And don't forget to check out my podcasts, The Emily Show, and the new podcast, Quick Bits, summarizing everything I talk about on my Tuesday and Thursday live streams. You know, when you only have time for just the quick bits.